You ever said so? Been a long time.
It has been a long time.
Got caretaker?
Oh, you can get there. This is my daughter Jessie and Sam.
Hi, Al.
Hello,
How are you?
I've been doing good.
How often do you meet?
Every Tuesday.
Once a week?
More frequent is.
Yeah, if needed.
Iowa County meets Tuesday and Friday, I think. and
No
there's
kidding.
5 of them. The county's smaller than Benton County.
The big have more problems.
More things to talk about?
Well, just let's leave it at that.
Is this still an elementary school?
Yeah. This is where I went to school. Kindergarten. I think it was through 5th grade. Cause then we went 6th, 7th, and 8th at the Tilford, which is now the elementary. Yeah, it's all changed.
I love the gardens. That's good. Is that like a community garden?
Yeah, well, the people that owned this building before had all that, and
Oh,
then now the ag extension took it over.
Good
But they
morning.
make them in partnership,
Jim,
so they donate like to the school
Pat over
and
there.
that's so cool. I love
food
that.
pantry, and
Yeah,
you'll have to check it out when you're ready.
yeah. Definitely.
We almost lost the garden when Charlie took it over.
Oh, really?
They tried to restore it, just let us keep doing it,
That's great.
because it was privately owned, and they took it over. You know, government does things.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we usually say the pledge of allegiance before we start our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I think that's typo
Okay,
in
good.
Gary's for the minutes.
Thank you.
Motion for minutes.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
All right, all in favor of passing the minutes from last week?
Aye.
Aye. Yep. How about the claims?
I didn't see anything.
I didn't see anything either.
Okay, do I have a motion?
You do.
Second.
Second. All in favor of approving the claims for the last couple of weeks?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want us to do that final plat while you guys are both in here too? Sure. So I gave you the resolution.
Yep.
They want to replat those lots in a subdivision. So they have to go through the process of replatting those lots by resolution, and then they have to pay their lot fees and the recording fees and all that, so.
That's east
It's
of Benton
Terrace
here?
Green.
Yep, Terrace Green Estates. So
Okay.
what he's doing is taking 3 lots and making them into 2.
Okay. You guys understand that? Do I have a motion?
Yes, you do.
It's by resolution.
Yeah.
Second.
By resolution, so.
Forever aye.
Beer shank aye.
Seaman, aye.
I'll have you sign both those copies, please.
About number 15, quick. Reappoint Kirk Beeson.
Beeson?
But let's wait for Tony though,
Yeah,
because I want to make sure I
okay.
wanted to, I had
Okay.
her ask him to make sure
Okay.
he wanted to be.
Okay.
I'm sure he does, but that's fine. from
Okay,
comments.
as long as he told somebody he wanted to be.
Well, just from comments, but that's fine, let's hold off.
And how about, medical examiner fees? What can you tell me on that?
Okay, so normal fees are $250 a case. Extreme cases, we pay $500. Jurisdiction decline, those are currently being paid $35, but Dr. Meeker and I have been discussing that. He's been getting a lot more of those. Normally, it's just he signs the death certificate. So like when people die in hospice care, normally the medical examiner does not have to go to those cases, but with the new online medical system, he has to go through and read all the paperwork to file all that before he can sign the death certificate. So he asked that we raise that particular part to 100, keep the rest the same.
It was at 35?
Was it? Yeah.
Goofed up.
Yep, and there's not a whole lot of them, but when he does them, it's time consuming, so.
How many do we have a year?
We just did 2 here in the last 2 weeks. You never know who's, I can't look in a crystal ball and know who's gonna die at home, but
How many do we have last year?
I think we had 41 cases last year, total medical examiner cases. They weren't all jurisdiction declined.
Well, it is time consuming, there's no doubt, and when you compare it to, you know, an office call, if you will.
Right, but he hasn't
Sure.
raised the other fees for
Yeah.
quite some time, so.
Well, I'd make the motion that we go ahead and raise that,
Jurisdiction declined.
what's that?
Jurisdiction declined is what we call those. JD.
Alrighty then.
Okay.
So, from 35 to 100.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want to make that effective today?
Aye,
Since
I would.
I have a couple.
Yes.
Okay, Barb.
I'd like to set a land use hearing for Corey Kreenert for Tuesday, June 8th at 9:15.
Well, I'll make the motion that we set that land use hearing for Corey Kreenert, is that how it's pronounced? For Tuesday, June 8th at 9:15 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mona.
Sarah would like a closed session for this part.
Okay. So with that, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm going to say, with a closed session, we ask everybody to step out into the hall. I'll make a motion that we go into closed session.
Second.
All in favor of going in a closed session?
Aye.
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 For purposes as described in item. There's hourly wage effective yesterday.
Two.
Do you want that?
Yep.
Okay, to $23 per hour,
Yep.
but not subject to the 3% increase July 1.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now you got her.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I'm glad you came forth.
This isn't easy for me because I never came into this field for the money.
Now you get a big raise, you wanna do a little gambling?
No.
No games of chance or anything, huh?
No. All right, well, we'll let you guys get back to the,
You can let the people in, would you please?
Thank you.
Question on your agenda, because I don't need to be here for this
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
thing that's
Bye-bye.
about to happen. When you get to, you haven't reappointed Kurt Easton to the, you haven't done that yet, have you?
No.
That we need to talk, have a little talk at that time about gender balancing that board.
Okay.
So that's gonna be closer in time to the 10:45 introduction of the new VA director, you think?
Yeah, definitely, or so.
Seems like there's somebody missing.
Do they know they can come
They're
back?
coming.
I think so.
Can you go back? The Penny was the same now.
Penny Wilson.
Oh, they don't know. It must not be food.
That must not.
Luckily I did that. I had to stop it mid, but it's not. Hopefully I did it okay.
Do what you need to do.
It
Haley.
shows there's people doing stuff.
It's been a real nice.
At least you remember the stuff though.
Yeah. Back when we've done the Zoom, that was a little, you had to do like 3 different things.
Up there.
That's right, it's going, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kicked out. That's really been a blessing.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Plenty of chairs.
I see that now. My glasses will fall down.
Oh,
How we doing?
Hi.
Great. All right. The big guy.
it's just the chair.
Sorry, Mike,
We
that's
won't
fine.
blame you, it was a bad chair.
We saved that for you.
We saved it for you.
Man down.
Man down.
Okay, we're ready to begin. I'm Mark Greenlee, Benton County's Environmental Health Officer and Land Use Administrator. I don't know if everybody knows the supervisors, Tracy Seaman, Gary Beershank, Rick Primer, our supervisors, and Haley Ripples, our county auditor. We have several folks here. Basically, how this is gonna work, I'm gonna give some organized remarks. We are having a public hearing this morning, and obviously there's a lot of public here, so we'll entertain your comments. I suspect that the board may want those to be a little bit limited in nature. We're not gonna put a stopwatch to you, Adele, but we'll try to keep it limited and on point. We're here this morning because we have received an application for a change in land use. And Tatiana, I hope I pronounced this right, Tatiana Medley?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tatiana is here, she's here in the blue and white stripe shirt. The address of where we're at is 2596 58th Street Lane, Benton. That's where the structure and the property that we're reviewing today are located. Tatiana is one of the owners of the property, and it's my understanding along with her sister,
Yes, sir.
Edra
Yes.
Caratero. And those are the signatures you have that are on the application that I gave to you this morning. The reason for the change in land use appears on the application. It states that the property is to be used as an Airbnb when the property is not occupied. That's the exact quote off the application. The parcel that we're reviewing today is 1 acre in size. It's located in the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter, section 15, township 85 north, range 10 west, or Taylor Township, as most of us here know it. If you look at the aerial that came with your application packet, this site is south of 58th Street. We're actually northwest of Benton. We're off of a private road that traverses through Wendling Quarry's property, and it's on its way back to the river. The area that this property is located in is referred to as Frog Hollow. As far as a little background on this property and this hearing this morning, It has an existing house. It's situated right on the edge of the river. It's all the way to the southernmost property that's located there in Frog Hollow. There was a cabin on this site years ago, and the previous owners, the Isbells, removed that cabin, built a log home on it. That was in approximately 1988, according to my records. It was allowed at the time to be built there because of the fact that there had been a cabin existing on it, and this particular home replaced that cabin. It happened just shortly after the effective date of our land use ordinance that we currently have. This land it has flooded. It's inundated the home twice. It is definitely in the floodplain. It was flooded in 2008 and again in 2016. In 2019, as far as I can tell, the current home was sold by the Isbells to Tatiana. And early this year, I received a notification that the home was being used as a B&B. And at that point in time, I contacted Tatiana by mail. That occurred on February 17th. Tatiana's home address is in Florida. I informed her by way of the letter that I had learned of the Airbnb and that according to my interpretation of our ordinance and with my responsibilities, that she would need to seek your approval to have that Airbnb there, as it constitutes a new non-agricultural use within our agricultural land use district. Now, most folks think, well, it's already got a house there, that's all well and good, but our ordinance is not a zoning ordinance, as most folks know it. It's not declared as being residential. It's part of an agricultural land use district, and in the case of these homes, the majority of them had been there prior to the inception date of our ordinance, which was 1985. But by virtue of the fact that we're doing a new use there, it does have to be reviewed and approved. Any new non-ag use has to be reviewed and approved. I communicated this to Tatiana. She ultimately sent this application that's before you today. During that period of time, when I was telling her of the need for the land use change, I gave her a deadline in which to apply, respond to my letter, basically, which she did. And in the interim, I asked her to quit advertising as an Airbnb and to quit using it as an Airbnb. At a little bit later point in time, I was advised, I was told that it was still on the website and that it wasn't still being used as an Airbnb. I subsequently contacted her again about that, and we're here today basically now to review what we have. As far as I'm going to do a brief technical review, and then when I get done with that, then I will go ahead and we'll entertain comments from all of you. Tatiana had told me basically that in respect to what's written on the application, I wanted to mention this, that it was going to be utilized as an Airbnb when it's not occupied. She had told me at the time that her daughter was living there, that she was a student at the University of Iowa, and that her husband also had been staying there. I have no way of knowing the validity of any of that, but that's what I was told. As far as the tech review goes, what we typically do is speak to the land in question. This land is a 1 acre parcel, as I said. It is already developed, as you know. It does have a home on it. There's a driveway that exists. It's a private driveway that goes all the way through Wendling Quarry off of 58th Street. It is shared access with all of the adjacent property owners that live there in this area, and it's all private, is my understanding of that. We received a letter from John Tudhill. John is here today. John represents Wendling Quarry, and I'll get to that in a minute, and if you wish, I will go ahead and read that to everyone so that John's comments are known. And if John wants to say anything further about it later on, he certainly can. This property does have a well and a septic system on it from previous days gone by. The septic system that is there, I want to make this an absolute, that it's, as in full disclosure, the septic system that is there is code conforming. It just was recently inspected in accordance with law. When property is transferred, it has to receive what's called a time of transfer inspection. It was inspected in 2019, and it is fine. What I want to make note of, however, though, is that the design for that system was done back in the 80s. With code at that point in time, it has a 1,000 gallon septic tank. It has 300 lineal feet of trench. That design basically constitutes a design for approximately 450 gallons of wastewater a day. I have no clue as far as the census or the number of occupants that you entertain at any point in time as far as this bed and breakfast, but I'm just wanting it to be known that that design could be small. It is small in respect to current day code. But 450 gallons, if there's 30 people there, that system is definitely undersized. And that it is what it is. And the other aspect of that, this property is in a floodplain, and redoing that septic system is going to be a monumental task and also expensive. There's a lot of details about that that it can wait for a later period of time, but I just wanted to make it known that that's what exists, and that system was designed for a 3-bedroom, single-family dwelling. The overall land use pattern of the area is also something that we always look at. And in respect to this, the way I see it is that the overall land use pattern is primarily full-time residences. I suspect there may be a residence or so that is not occupied full-time, but this area is a little bit different than some of the areas that we have in Benton County that are along the river, where they are more or less infrequent, so to speak. They're not full-time residences. People visit them on their weekends, get away, if you will, and I think this area is just a little bit different than that. As far as the other land uses in the area, of course, the river is there, and the quarry fronts this property to the north. In respect to this particular issue, I can tell you that ever since I became aware of the fact that the B&B is existing there, I've received numerous negative comments about its existence. That isn't being said to put anybody down, it's just the way that it is. Some of the comments have been basically about that it is not a compatible use. We have spoken to the sheriff. We received a report that there was an incident out there where there was a conflict between a resident and a dog. That apparently the dog was somehow or another associated with this property. I've been made aware of parking problems since the very beginning, since the winter time. People were parking up on Wendling property, up near the access off of 58th Street, and going back and forth back to the B&B. That, frankly, comes to mind that could be considered as a trespassing issue. It's also a liability issue in respect to the Wendling property. Due to the fact that, and I think if you guys have studied the maps that John presented, you know that not only do we have the river, but we have a sand pit out there, which could be considered as an attraction to some folks, particularly those that aren't familiar with the area. And then the river itself presents certain problems that other properties may not present. There is not much parking right in front of the residence available. I suspect that, and Tatiana could attest to this further, but I remember having been on the property numerous times in the years, and if there's more than one vehicle right near the front of it, it's sometimes a juxtapositioning to try to get in and out of it. As far as that, the use and the rental of a home, I'd like to make the comment that I don't feel that our ordinance tries to keep anyone from renting a single-family dwelling that they may own. That's not the intent. But what I described here earlier, what I described to Tatiana, is a different situation in respect to a renting situation. I do not think that this is your typical rental, and in respect to our ordinance, I have declared it that it is a new non-agricultural use. Our responsibilities tell us that once you've set a hearing, we have to notify adjacent property owners, all property owners that are within 500 feet of the proposed property that we're reviewing. This particular situation is we sent out 14 property owner notices, and of course to Tatiana, and then we sent one to John Tuthill as the larger property owner. I think I can see by folks that are here, a good share of the adjacent property owners are here today and represented. I received 2 letters, and actually one was addressed to you, but it came by way of me. That is from John Tuthill. You'd like me to read
Please,
those and
read them.
introduce those into the proceedings of the hearing today. The first one I'll read is to Mark Greenlee, Land Use Administrator. This letter concerns the changing of the Mesereau property to be used for an Airbnb. The road to their house goes through our front yard. Having a lot of strangers go through is very unsettling. At times, there are several kids playing down there. This comes from Jim Wilson, who is at 2590 58th Street Lane, Benton. The second letter I referred to already, it comes to you from John Tuthill at Wendling Quarries Incorporated. It says, Dear Sirs, Wendling Quarries Incorporated is requesting that the Board of Supervisors deny the request to change the zoning classification of a property located at 2596 58th Street Lane, Benton, Iowa, for the commercial use referred to as an Airbnb. As a matter of introduction, I am Wendling's property manager, and I have personally and professionally been involved with the acquisition and management of our quarry and sand pit, which was formerly Milroy Sand Pit and Quarry, for nearly 25 years. As a matter of reference to the overall use of the area in recent times, Babe Anderson, B.L. Anderson Incorporated, got his foothold in the quarry and sand pit business in Benton County during the early 1930s. Babe worked Milroy Quarry and Sand Pit from about 1932 to 1990, when he leased the operations to Vulcan Materials. BLA also purchased land from a Carlotta Butterfield, which are the future reserves for the quarry operations. Wendling Quarry Incorporated purchased the lease holding from Vulcan Materials, and we have operated the quarry and sand pit ever since. Wendling Quarry Incorporated purchased BLA in March of 2001 and the quarry and sand pit properties from the Milroy/Herder properties in 2012. Therefore, 2 primary uses currently exist in the area, which is currently classed as agricultural land. Mining, extraction of sand, gravel, and stone, and the Frog Hollow single-family residence, which were developed by the Milroy family over time. The only access to the aforementioned property is through our property via an ingress/egress easement on a privately owned road, in parenthesis, shared ownership of road by certain Frog Hollow residents and Wendling Quarry Incorporated. This roadway is subject to flooding, which alters the manner in which Frog Hollow residents can access their properties almost on an annual basis anymore. An exhibit showing an approximation of where the current easement lies is included for your inspection. This easement was granted to the lot owners of Frog Hollow when Milroy sold them the various properties, and they run with the ownership of the land. In addition, anyone that purchased any part of what was called the Butterfield property has a different easement to access their properties. It is often referred to as the, quote, high water access, unquote. As far as my research to date, it does not appear to me that all the owners of lots at Frog Hollow have access to the high water access across what we refer to as the Butterfield property. Thus, for all practical purposes, they would be landlocked during times of flooding. However, ever since my involvement with the site, and probably well before that, we have done one of 2 things. 1, at the point the Frog Hollow easement becomes inundated, we open up our front and back quarry gates and allow the residents only to drive through the quarry stockpile area. See the map. At the point floodwaters rise and inundate the quarry access and the access to Benton County V16, known as the High Road, we allow all the residents of Frog Hollow to use the high water access on the old Butterfield property, which accesses V16 above floodwaters. 3, as a side note, people who own properties in the Butterfield property ordinarily use the Frog Hollow easement for ingress/egress to their properties. It would take many lawsuits and court rulings to figure out the definitive rights for each piece of property that currently uses Wendling Quarry Incorporated land to access the lots at Frog Hollow and the Butterfield properties. None of that has ever been necessary because of the long-time neighborly relationship we have had with everyone down there. Opening up our quarry site during times of high water exposes our company to liability, but through the respectful and responsible usage by the residents, we've never experienced any problems. We see nothing but problems if the zoning classification is changed at Frog Hollow for the following reasons. The quarry and sand pit sites are governed under Mine Safety and Health Administration, which have many rules and requirements governing access to the mine site. 2, the quarry, to anyone who is not familiar with it, has many hazards, such as high walls, loose materials, and ever-changing piles of rock. 3, the use of heavy equipment, blasting and explosives, high-voltage electrical equipment, etc., etc. These hazards are manageable if people are aware of them and have grown up around them. Transient renters of an Airbnb will not be aware of the hazards, and we will not allow them to use the emergency access. It exposes our company to a degree of liability that we cannot accept. Section 2.53, and this is quoting from our own ordinance. He has it highlighted. The use does not materially alter the stability of the overall land use pattern in the area. Principal uses in this area have been mining, quarrying, and sand/gravel extraction in rural residential single-family homes. The homes adjacent to our mining site have historically been held by the same people for many years. We believe an Airbnb is a commercial use of one of these residences, which is a change or alteration of the land use pattern of the area, which will materially affect that stability and safety of the area. We pray that the Board of Supervisors deny the request to approve a non-agricultural use. There are many more issues related to trespassing, illegal parking, and disorderly conduct that have been experienced by the area residents, which they can speak to. Safety is our primary concern. Thus, I've tried to explain the situation with access and how things have been handled in the past. If you have any questions or you'd like to see the various easements and safety concerns, you can call John at 319-560-0388, and he would make every effort to facilitate a site visit. Those were the 2 letters that we had received in advance. My final remarks basically are in conjunction with what was referenced at the end of John's letter there in respect to our land use ordinance. As the administrator of the ordinance, my responsibility to point out to you things that you need to be sure that you know when it's time to act on a request. And one of those are in relation to that section that John quoted. Article 4, Section 2.53 speaks to the stability of the overall land use pattern of the area. And it says in there that if indeed that stability, or that if you cannot find that the stability would remain as it is, then you are not to approve that land use change. So the question is does this new use materially alter the overall stability of the land use pattern of the area? In respect to what John quoted and in respect to what I know what the ordinance says, my conclusion is that you can't find that it would not alter the overall land use pattern of the area because of the difference in this particular use. That's all I have, other than the fact that folks here want to speak, and if anybody has any questions, they can certainly ask, but that's all I have as far as the organized remarks.
Anybody would like to comment? Go ahead.
Can I just follow up on my letter?
Sure.
This is, I wouldn't be here today or put that kind of effort into informing you of the accesses out there, but what has been done in the past has been me working with Charlie, Garwood and all the other people out there to be able to access that. And he can speak to how things happen in an emergency situation when it floods and so on and so forth. But the access is not very clear, and the Frog Hollow residents really have to come through the quarry and our property to get in and out of there when it floods. So I'm not going to extend that privilege, I guess, to people that just come in and out on a commercial basis. It's just not something I'll go to court to make that not happen. So and all the rest of the people have much more familiarity with the issues related to all the other issues that have happened out there since this started. So I'll let them talk to that. But do you have any questions related to how the MSHA works and the quarry?
Both ways in and out are an easement then?
Well, all the Frog Hall residents, which were a product of Milroy selling those lots off to people, use that because, are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not.
It goes in between the sand pit and the quarry. If you look on the map,
Okay.
you can kind of see that low,
Yep.
low westerly axis. Everybody uses that. And when the flood water comes up to a certain point, which isn't the massive flood point, that road floods. And so I've got a key box system, and Charlie Garwood, the fire chief, will open up those gates at night so ambulance, fire truck, people can come in and out of there without me having to scramble from the whip to do that. And it's basically just a trust system that they're familiar with the property. They can navigate in and out of there and not drive off into the quarry where the high walls are and those kinds of things. So it's really a trusting relationship that he could speak to on the other half of it. And then once the water gets up to a 2008 or a 2016 or a 1993 level, everybody has to go up over the high ground on what I would call the Easement Trail. It's a dirt path that they go in and out of with four-wheelers for the most part. It's not really a developed drive in any matter of means. And that has a real potential for somebody not to be familiar with it, to drive off in the timber and become completely lost.
But I guess my question still wasn't answered. The Frog Hollow easement, that's on your property?
No, it's not. Those people have an easement across our property, plus a whole bunch of other Frog Hollow residents. You have that, can I show you?
Yeah, you got the map right here.
Yeah.
But this is your property right here.
Our property, this is old county road
Yep.
easement. Our property starts here. They drive through our property until they get down by Beatty's, and then Charlie Garwood, and then where they cross here, I don't remember who's that Mattoon's property, whoever property, then they go on to their property, and then they go on to their property, and then they go on to, back onto Milroy's property, or Herger's, and then they go on to, I think, Amy's property, or somebody.
Yeah, it would be us.
All this, and the maintenance of this road is another issue that they can speak to, because they're responsible for maintaining their own access out of there. It's just across our property, and we work with them and give them gravel and so on and so forth to do that. But when the water comes up to a certain level, then they cut through this gate and they go out. This dotted line on this one is, so when the water gets really high, then everybody has to come up a driveway down here in Hart's property and come across this property. So, and I don't think that all of these residents have that right to do that, because this is related to a property an easement that was established when Carlotta Butterfield owned all of this timber back in here. And they forced the easement, or when they sold this to B.L. Anderson, they kept retaining an easement to get out to Old County Road here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does now.
Okay.
Yep.
But this is not our ground, obviously. It's all the different property owners.
Okay.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
On the emergency services part, I've talked to John Tuthill that when we have to access through the middle of the quarry, they're opening both their gates, and that opens up the hazard of them going around. So John made the statement that at the time that we have to use that, maybe closing the gates, leaving them locked for the residents to unlock as they come and go. And I said, we can't do that. To protect the liability for the quarry, because emergency services aren't gonna have a key to that. If there's a call, the ambulance gets there, they can't get in, the fire truck can't get in. So that's not acceptable. We can't, that can't happen.
So, I mean, good morning, first of all. I mean, my name is Tatiana Mesero, and I think everybody's expecting from me, to go ahead and say something. I just want to say first, I mean, I know that for all of you, I'm a stranger, right? I get that. But the one thing that I want you guys to all remember is that this was never my intention. I never intended to, create such a hassle and for us all to be here. It was a very naive mistake. I decided to go ahead and actually, the intention of us purchasing the property was never as a rental property. We lived here in Iowa. We were residents in Iowa. My husband got sick and we unfortunately had to go to a warmer weather state, which is Florida. He lost his leg. He's an amputee and all of my neighbors know it. So I don't want you guys to think that my intention of acquiring that property was to go ahead and make any money. It just happened. His health, which everybody, my neighbors knew, because we had an incident when actually it got flooded, his health got deteriorated and we had to go ahead and go back. The house became empty. And unfortunately, we start getting, mice. So, one of the guys that came in and said, you know what, you might need to go ahead and have people coming in because, when mouse don't see any activities, it's probably going to go ahead and probably to have more people. So that's how it started. Their purpose is not for me to go ahead and become rich. The intention was never for me to go ahead and get people, strangers. I hear and you guys have absolutely all the rights to be upset. I will be upset, but that was not my intention. The process of Airbnb, I know probably is, unfamiliar to all of you. It is a very screening process. We don't go ahead and just get any random people. I hear about safety. I work in HR. The safety of my employees is the number one priority. So I would never jeopardize. I would never, for a buck or two. That's not me. That's, I know my husband is not here, but I know you guys don't know us. We're good people. We don't bother anybody. We've been living there almost for over a year. Whatever animals come to our house, we treat them. We're animal lovers. I mean, we don't disturb. We don't, we're not noisy people. We're not, into parties or anything like that. It upsets me, to say the least. But I respect that. I respect all of you, how you guys feel. I don't want you to come across as I don't care and I'm here to do whatever I want to. That's not me. I know, like I said, you guys don't know me. You guys have not, got the opportunity to meet me on a personal level, but that's not my intention. So, going back to the property of the quarry, I get that. If it gets the weather to be in that situation, obviously, if I'm not able, even me myself, able to get to my house, what makes me think that I'm going to have people that are going to pay not to go ahead and be able to get into the house? So, I hear what you're saying as far as the safety, and that will be completely out of questions. The property will not even be rented, when it gets flooded. I would never jeopardize the life of any of my neighbors. Like I said, I keep repeating myself that you guys don't know me, but my intentions are not to create any animosity between us. So I took a couple of notes, as far as a rental. I'm trying to still figure it out, what problems. I know the only situation we had that it was with one of the animals, which happened to be not even a person that was renting the property. It was actually a family member. So they do screen the people that go in my house. Remember, it's my property. So it is in my own benefit to know for sure what type of person I'm going to go ahead and allow to come in on my house. So again, I do take it seriously. I know that, the Wilsons have brought to my attention as far as the speeding that people were saying. We corrected that. And actually that was my daughter, who was, going too fast through that driveway. So I'm here to answer any questions. But one thing that I want everybody to take out of this meeting is that my intention was never to disrupt your life, which it seems to be because the amount of people that I have here. I think that, like when I spoke to Mr. Greenlee, I appreciate the opportunity he gave me. I said, I would like to go ahead and just be given the opportunity. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'm not gonna be upset at anybody. Like I said, that was never my intention. I never bought that property with the intention to go ahead and make a living of it. You know, I bought property, because I like Iowa. I love Iowa. I'm from Peru. I was born in Peru. My husband is from Iowa. He went to University of Iowa. My daughter went to Iowa. If it wouldn't be for my husband's medical condition, we would have never left Iowa. So that's all that I want to say. I don't know if anybody have questions for me. Well, thank you everybody for the time.
Your husband's in Florida then?
Right now, yes, sir.
Then you and your daughter live out there
Yes,
then?
sir. So my job allows me to go back and forth, and that's what my application said, when the property is not occupied, sometimes people will go ahead and rent it. Now, some of those people are my family and friends, so not all the people that are coming to my cabin, they are going through Airbnb. So, again, when we bought this property, it never occurred to me that I needed to go ahead and kind of disclose how many people can come in my cabin, so we like the area, I think that we do abide by all the rules that are, we even, try to go ahead and help out whenever they need, so I honestly don't know what we did wrong, sir. That's the straight honest answer from me. I just, if it was as far as the intention of becoming problematic or bringing trespassers or stealing people or making disturbance and making noises, again, the same people that you guys are concerned about coming into that area are the same people that will be coming into my property. So why would I want that? So, but, to your question, yes, sir, we are residents of Iowa. I have my license in Iowa. I do my taxes in Iowa. I actually did my property taxes, and I had that property as a rental because, I'm not trying to do anything illegal. Probably disclosing a little bit too much because I don't think nobody discloses any taxes. But yes, sir, if you want a copy of it, I will be more than happy to give you a copy of that too. But I did vote in Iowa, so I'm a resident of Iowa. I pay my property taxes and I pay my city taxes. So I'm not trying to go ahead and hide anything. I've been very transparent with Mr. Greenlee. I explained to him the situation. So my sister, we bought that property, she's in the Navy, and I explained to Mr. Greenlee, it will take us a little bit longer because she's deployed right now, and we had to go ahead and get her the letter so she could go ahead and sign it. So.
I'm guessing that nobody in this group is opposed to friends and family, are they?
I don't know, but this is the first time I have met her.
Okay, but,
Well, it depends on friends and family, because I live 9 feet from the road that they have to drive by to get to the residence. In the last 2 months, we've had traffic every day, every week, every weekend. There's vehicles, last weekend alone, there were 7 vehicles parked at the house, going in and out all day long, all weekend. I'm okay with friends and family, but that seems like too much. That road is not meant to have that kind of traffic. And no, you have never helped out on the road. We maintain the road. And we cannot do that if there's that much traffic going in and out. Why should we maintain a road that only one person uses?
You said I never helped her, but I did offer. I have, documentation that I sent it to Lisa, and I said, Lisa, when is my turn to go ahead and do the road? And she said, I'll let you know. So don't make it sound like I never offered. I did offer. Again.
And when's the last time you were at the house?
Last time I was there in spring break, and I was just here, that my daughter had the shot, so I had to come back because she's still a minor.
Okay.
So I've been.
So who are all these people that have been at the house?
Now, last weekend, they were working on the yard.
Oh.
I had a lot.
Who are all these people?
So, Amy, again, to your point, in order for you to take pictures, I think that's a little bit,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're driving across my yard.
No, but that is my driveway.
Yes.
So if somebody's coming in my driveway to take pictures, then.
No, I'm pretty sure that's my deck.
I know, but go back, go to the other pictures.
Yes.
I have my niece saying that people are coming, and I even texted to you and I said, Amy, who's taking pictures of
Yeah,
the driveway?
it's me, because they are driving through my yard.
Well,
Can you restate your question? I kind of lost it.
Well, basically,
Yes,
the point
that's my
in
problem.
question here is the Airbnb, not family.
I don't have a problem with anybody coming to the quarry that's familiar with it and has lived there a long time and will respect our rules and just the safety aspect. And anybody that's transient and not used to that, I mean, I don't think I actually have to grant permission to go through the quarry property, so.
Sure.
I mean,
Yep.
I have to grant access because there's easements that run with the land out there, but the request is to change the use to a commercial use, and that's what we're opposed to.
Correct.
And
Not,
I can,
not,
I'm
We're
sorry.
not, we're not opposed to people.
I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say that, you know, I can assure you that, you know, I know exactly what road you're talking about, and to us, it was the first time that we had to use that route, so I would never defer anybody, you know, if they're going to the cabin to get that route, if that makes you, you know, feel better. Like, for me to go ahead and tell somebody that I'm not comfortable with, and that it is my daughter or somebody that I know to go that route, you know.
I don't want to have to turn.
I want to speak, excuse me, I want to speak on this.
Okay.
Because that's open as an Airbnb, and it's out on the website. People are gonna be curious to go and look at this place to see if they want to rent it.
Right.
It's not the ones that she's inviting or renting to the house. You have the access in it to the public. And we've already had an incident when they did not know how to navigate the area due to high water and drove through and had to be rescued by the fire department in the water. So, I mean, you're gonna have this type of activity, not just the renting part. You're gonna have everybody that wants to see what it looks like to maybe rent it.
Well, I don't want to have to escalate it to it's a sign in, sign out, permission access across our property where, you know, you've got to have a key card to open a gate to get in and out of. And I have to deal with the sheriff's department and the fire department and the county rescue and blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's not a workable scenario to turn this into a commercial change the use kind of scenario at this location. And I think Mark really did a good job of explaining why it didn't fit into this area. And if your intention is not to disrupt the activity and the general use of this area and the safety and stability of it, I would request you withdraw your application.
Thank you, John. I just wanted to submit, we did, according to the ordinance, there was that the residents could submit a letter of protest. And so I have that signed by the residents and referred to the ordinance of the change. And I guess with Charlie and John also, yeah, a lot of what is in the ordinance and what Mark said is a change of the land use, the safety from fire, flood, panic, and other dangers, and another Article 7, Section 5, 5.1, or I guess it's 5.4, you don't want to unduly increase the hazard from fire, flood, and danger to said property. John had talked about the floods the last 2 years. We had, in 2020, the flood got up to 16 feet. 2019, it was 18 feet. Usually just from historic, once it gets to 15 feet, it will flood the lower road from Tatiana's house, probably up to our driveway, and then part of the lower road going into the quarry, but not through the quarry yet. Usually it will have to get up to about 16 or 18 feet, and then that's when you need to drive through the quarry.
And to those that aren't familiar with this area, it is not a gravel road like you think of as a county gravel road. It has a lot of curves, it has blind corners. As it gets toward the end, it narrows down, and in several spots is one lane only. So there again, it adds problems for people that don't know the area and think they can go carrying through at a high rate of speed, and you really can't drive over 20, 25 mile an hour in the main part of the road.
How many residents actually live there full time?
9?
9?
Nine,
That's counting her.
Count it.
So at least 20 vehicles,
excuse me?
at least 20 vehicles, I would say, ballpark.
Or more, because 2 per family, sometimes 3 with children.
Well, any more comments?
I guess I would like to speak to just the way it was written up on the way it was presented on the website makes it sound like, oh, this is a beautiful cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and you can do whatever you want. You can walk through the woods, and yes, there are woods that are behind their home that they could, but our family also owns the property across the road in the floodplain. And I have concerns because we've seen a lot of four-wheelers and side-by-sides out there that people would not understand the boundaries of her land and feel like they could go four-wheeling down through our river bottoms. And of course, we're concerned about the risk that that presents as well.
Do I have a motion to
Well-
approve? or-
You know, I'd just like to point out, we're here to decide this B&B,
Mhm.
not necessarily decide how many vehicles can come in and out of a single property or disturbing a neighbor. You know, we're here for the B&B. And the young lady has already indicated that she did not mean to disrupt and would never have done anything to purposely harm anyone regarding this. And, you know, it's already been proposed, I'm sorry, I missed his name, for
John Tuttle.
John, okay, I almost said Jim. John, that, you know, maybe she would like to withdraw her request, you know, before we do a vote. So I guess that would be a question I would ask.
Well, I guess the question that I have is, so the problem that the neighbors have is that, you know, I hear Charlie have to put a permission to rent, because I thought that's what you said, that, you know, that's not, we're not discussing how if people can rent it. So I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to figure out. So if I have people coming over, so let's say I take it out from Airbnb, I'm still gonna be able to invite family and friends to come to my place, right? I mean, I just wanna have a better understanding of what are my boundaries, I guess, you know, without, you know, and again, you know, if the weather, if I'm not able to get in my cabin, you know, why would I have people, you know, going through the quarry or that route? I mean, that really does not make any sense, right? So I guess the question is, you know, am I the only person to go ahead and be able to live in my cabin? I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous of a question, because I'm pretty sure everybody can go ahead and welcome anybody at the cabin, or I mean, and at their own property, at their own homes. So if I remove it from Airbnb, right, and I still have people come and visit me, with me or without me in the cabin, am I still gonna be in trouble? I guess that's the question. You know, because I have no problem, like I said, you know, but I would like to have people, I mean, my daughter goes to the university, I mean, it's expected for her to have friends coming over the weekend. You know, that's the line that I'm trying to get to. You know, who is allowed in my, you know, and unfortunately, yes, my cabin is the last one. You know, it just happened that it's the last one at the end of the road. Can I pick it up and move it? Probably, if I could, I would, but I can't. I just, you know, it seems to be impossible for me to limit the number. Okay, no, we exhausted already. This week we had 20 vehicles, so we have to wait until next week until we can go ahead and get a pass. And I'm not trying to be smart or anything like that, but come on, help me, guys. I need to figure it out here. Where are my boundaries? what can I do in the cabin, what can I not do without upsetting my neighbors? Because it seems to me that that's what it's coming to.
Well, if I'm reading things correctly, I don't think anybody has an issue with friends,
Okay, that's
family.
fine.
I think what they've got an issue with is the B&B.
Okay,
Now, if there's, and I'm gonna pick on your daughter for a minute,
Absolutely,
because
sure.
you mentioned her being at the university.
Mhm.
If she invites a bunch of friends up and there's a wild party going on, fellow over there is gonna get a call, that's the sheriff.
right, okay.
And just like any other resident that would get a little carried away, they're probably gonna have the sheriff call them.
Okay.
As far as going forth, if you choose to use it as a rental
Mhm.
property, I would think that'd be a long-term
Okay,
rental.
that's fine. And I'm okay.
Not a week, a month, I'm talking an annual type rental. And I don't know if that constitutes a land use change or not.
I stated in my remarks that our ordinance does not prohibit anyone from renting a
Okay.
property.
Perfect.
As you say, long-term. This approach, this Airbnb is what was at odds with our ordinance.
Does that help you?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, Airbnb is just one platform for, for people to kind of use it. Like, like I said, if I know I'm not gonna come in the whole winter or the whole summer, I can go ahead and get somebody. Like I said, if I decide to go ahead and have people come in for a month, that should be my right. If whether they pay me or not pay me, that's irrelevant, I guess, to all of us.
Well, if they're coming in to stay for a month,
Mhm.
that's short-term.
Mhm.
I would indicate, rental, and I'm in the rental business.
Right,
Long-term, mine are annual leases. And so, that's totally different, obviously.
right.
If you're doing an annual lease, I would think that you'd want to, of course, let your neighbors know, because you want to know if there's any issues. You'd want to be getting with Wendling, and John,
Mhm.
so that they know, that this is an annual lease. Month to month, I don't know that I would.
But again, like you had said, I'm okay if I have people come in for a week, I mean, as long as it's not a rental, right? Because let's say
I
if
think I'd like some clarification on that.
But, okay, so let's say I want to have some friends coming over for a week or two, but it's not a rental, and I'm not going to be at the cabin. Can they come in to my cabin?
That's short term again.
But I'm not renting.
I get it.
Mhm.
I understand that.
Right.
It's definitely out of the ordinary from normal residents, is the way I see it.
Mhm.
I don't know about anybody else in the room, but I see that as, out of the ordinary. They're not a permanent resident or someone on a long term.
Mhm.
You got a question?
She did mark off originally when it was on the Airbnb site. She marked off the dates after I believe Mark asked her to not rent it. I think everybody in this neighborhood can attest to, after she supposedly wasn't renting it on Airbnb, that we still saw the same amount of traffic and issues and problems with the people that were down there, because like John attested to, they don't have that trust and that emotional investment in the neighborhood and keeping it a friendly neighborhood where you look out for each other and you protect each other and you don't want to disturb your neighbors. These people that come through there don't care about any of that. And so I think she's also said that there's other ways to get around the Airbnb of getting people in there on short-term rentals.
No, so.
Or stays, or.
So the difference is if the cabin goes on the Airbnb, it limits the number of people that can come in. I think that's the part that probably, if I take it off the Airbnb, then I have the cabin completely for myself, so I can go ahead and manage better. So when I have it in Airbnb, I'm at the, the people that want to go ahead and reserve. So by not having an Airbnb, you're right, it's gonna open more my window of what do I want to do with it? Does it make sense? I mean, so it's the opposite. By me taking it out of Airbnb, now I can determine if I wanted to go ahead and say, hey, you want to go ahead and come in for a week, then go ahead, instead of being limited to what's available in the calendar.
I think you're gonna run into some issues with John.
Yeah, that becomes a civil matter if you're disturbing my enjoyment of my property. But I guess, I have a question for, I guess, Mark or the supervisors. If in fact you approve this as an Airbnb and commercial use, what does that open the door up? Can she have a tavern down there? Can she put a shooting range down there? Can she, how does this change the usage of the property if you choose to approve the request, I guess, is a question I had that I wanted to answer in all of this before it's over with.
I'm no attorney, but I'm gonna say two things she can't. Anything that she'd want to do would have to come back to the supervisor. Shooting range, for one thing, she couldn't do that. It's within 200 yards, all the buildings close, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just,
You don't have enough land.
it's gonna open up for other commercial usage.
Right.
Or not, I don't know.
Right.
That's an ordinance question, that's a legal question.
Well, I don't have any intentions, to be honest, so that's.
I know, but
like,
once
know.
you change the use of the land, then it opens the door up to,
Yeah, no, I understand, but like.
In our situation, it's specific intended use. She applied for an Airbnb. If indeed the board approved that, that would not give her the right to do all kinds of other.
Okay, well, that was
commercial
the
use.
answer. Right.
It's specific in respect to this. That's what we came to public hearing to review, and that's what we published.
Okay.
And I guess I'm stepping outside of that realm, the B&B, because she was asking, well, what is she able to do? And long-term rental is one thing that she should be able to do, like an annual. Short-term, whether it's, a fee charged or not, I would say is now back almost a commercial type use. And so.
So I have a question. So I do have, they're gonna go ahead and clean the trees because it's very messy in the back, right? So the guy that is gonna come and clean the trees probably has to stay, instead of him going back and forth with his equipment, because obviously now that's a problem. If he stays 2-3 days to clean the trees, is that gonna be a problem?
And you're okay with him staying at your house?
Yeah,
for that
yeah, because it's,
purpose? Yeah.
so that's, you see, and I'm not trying to be difficult, please, don't, I'm not trying to be, not repeating myself, it's just that, okay, you guys want me to take it out of Airbnb, I have no problem, I take it out. But I think that I still should have the right to see who comes to my cabin. If I have somebody that comes and visit my daughter and obviously cannot stay with her at the dorms, they should be able to stay in my place for a week or 2 weeks, or if they want to stay for a whole month, they should. And that's, I think, the part that I'm having a difficulty understanding. Like, if they have a vehicle, I need to have a vehicle because I rent. Sometimes I leave my husband's truck here, sometimes we go ahead and take it back. Right now I have a rental, sometimes it's my daughter, so there might be 2 vehicles. If I have people, working, like, if they're cleaning, if they're doing the pest, there are gonna be more vehicles.
Sure.
So I can control the number of vehicles that I'm gonna have in the driveway, so.
And
So I mean, and again, I'm not, if we've had issues in the past, please talk to me, let me know, hey Tatiana, you know what, I will have my cell phone number available, even if it's my daughter, because some of the issues, it happened to be a family member, it was not even a tenant. I find out tenants are more disciplined into following the rules when they're with Airbnb, because otherwise they're gonna go ahead and get the deposit taken out. So it's usually the family members that are more, in a way, comfortable with breaking the rules than the tenants that in Airbnb, because they have to, there's policies and rules that they have to follow through that system. I mean, I don't know if it makes sense.
I might add that while it was an Airbnb, it's not like she rents it for a week, like some have a 3-day minimum or a week rental. A group from town rented it, had a band, had umpteen cars parked down the road and had a giant party there. we also have concerns about that kind of rental happening, obviously, with all the other issues that everyone has stated about going through the quarry property and everything else. So Airbnb isn't necessarily that control.
As a resident, if this Airbnb or short-term rental of this place forces John and Wendling quarries due to MSHA or whatever to alter our access in and out of our homes because of this exposure, that's not gonna go well with these residents, and we're gonna wind up in court. I mean, because of this, if you put yourselves in our situation, because of this Airbnb, John has to put up gates with emergency opening, whatever, just so we can get home. That's not gonna go over well.
Well, if I had to hire a car to let people in and out, I mean, this is not a workable scenario in my mind.
Can I say something? I'm the person who was there for this huge rock out band that wasn't there. It was two people, one played a guitar, actually two played a guitar, that stayed inside the house. There was no music past 11 o'clock, police were not called, there were no disturbances out there for that aspect. Even the neighbors were invited, come on down and listen to two people play guitar and sing a song. Everything was shut down, they were gone by 11.
I worked second shift, I came home from work at almost midnight, and there was still at least 6 to 8 cars parked on the road right out of my driveway.
There were 4 of us staying there, so there were 4 vehicles in there, but the band people were gone before 11.
Well, this was out on the main part of the road.
That was past the private sign of Frog Hollow.
That's
Not
It's
anywhere
private,
near.
That's still
but
Beatty's
The
land.
minute you come off the
That's the
highway, it's
problem,
private.
everybody's driving.
It was either
it's
ours.
private.
That was his
If you're parking
driveway.
on our property, then it was trespass.
I mean, if I can
Then they
say
should have had
something.
the cops called and had
You
the
know,
cars.
I
didn't know what was going on, so
I honestly thought that by me putting, the Airbnb, I also was kind of, when people come in, because I have people coming from Colorado, Minnesota, Illinois, they do, kind of support the economy in town. It's like, to me, I take pride when they come in, it's a beautiful town, beautiful city, can't wait to go back. I mean, if you guys had the chance to go in the Airbnb, I mean, it's just amazing, positive comments about the town. To me, I took that as, very personal, that, wow, I'm a little person kind of getting the opportunity to, to kind of expose the city, of lights, kind of welcoming people. And, when they go to, shop in the little store, go into Pizza Ranch, kind of help the economy. I'm not competing with anybody. There's only one hotel in town. There's a lot of family members that they were able to afford to come in for weddings, visit them for graduations, during the pandemic. It's like, the rates were so affordable for families that compared to if they were being able to go ahead and stay in a hotel in just one room.
But this isn't a hotel, this is our home. This is our neighborhood.
I felt like I was honestly making a positive impact, if you ask me. I thought that I was, kind of helping people to visit family members in town when they were not able to afford in a hotel for a rate.
Well, I'm certainly not questioning your intent, I'm just questioning whether it's the right place for that kind of a thing, because of the specifics of this area and the fact that we got a quarry and sand pit, which you gotta drive through. And I don't think anybody here is taking an issue with the goodness of an Airbnb anywhere. It's just at this location, it's an unworkable scenario.
The bottom line is what the ordinance says in respect to the overall land use pattern of the area. And the question is does this use alter that overall land use pattern of the area? And based on comments and what's been presented, then that becomes the question, do you feel that it alters that? And if it does, you can't approve it.
And again, John asked her if she would like to remove her request on the application, and I'll ask you that. Otherwise, we are going to
But,
make
well, I
a
mean,
vote.
I honestly don't think it makes sense at this point if I do withdrawal or it doesn't. I mean, it's a non-refundable fee, right? So it's not that if I withdraw, I mean, am I going to get my money back? If that's the case, You know, because it seems to me that I walked in, you know, and already decision has been made.
I would just interject, I think you need to act on the application as it was presented, either approve it or deny it.
Okay, all right. Unless there's any other comments? I'll make a motion that we deny the application.
Second.
All in favor of denying the application for Tatiana?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Number 7, since Haley had to leave, you guys will have to table until next week.
Catch your name.
William Hart.
And you work for?
I work for Bright Star East in Cedar Rapids.
But he was on that list. Signatures. Correct. That's right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. That actually is on the abstract, it shows where that easement goes. It's just hard to read. I don't know why that abstract, or felt like they had to color it. Sand gets there before it's
Sorry, this light up.
No, most of the controversies are civil matters. My mistake.
Yeah.
So we don't have something to drive on.
Operating that way, just not advertising.
I live down the southern end of the county, so I've never been to your rocks.
Yeah, anytime. This is not a good scenario. This is not how access to the property. It's a forward trail.
We'll wait a few minutes, Sammy. We'll wait a few minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
Let everybody kind of settle down. And
Absolutely, yeah.
I think.
I drive by it, I look at your quarry.
Yep. No, you're fine.
After the night, I can see what's going on. I appreciate you being there. I just don't, I can't bring a truck clear up here.
I didn't want to draw any names, it was.
Usually, Garrison.
It's closer.
Yeah.
Miles are long.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, all miles are money. That's the truth.
Actually, the stone here has a little better quality of it too, in some aspects.
Whatever. It is what it is.
No, they're both our quarries.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
formation's a little bit different there.
yeah.
That's what I'm stating.
And I used to have-
The beaver has a button that we open.
I used to have an account there, but I don't anymore, so I just pay for everything as I get it. That's kind of a pain because I gotta write a check every time. Whatever, it's fine, it's fine. Sometimes we get a semi-load, sometimes we get a straight load, whatever. Down in Millerstown.
You know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think it's Mark Moss, he claimed to be a huge dairy farmer down here. Lives over there after surgery. I just know.
Is that dairy still open up in Springville? There's it's over east of 13, about 4 or 5 miles. I think it's closed up.
Yeah, I don't know.
We used to get calves, but we never got them from that area. We went down to Mount Pleasant to get them. Mount Pleasant's closed up, I guess. Blairstown's calves go to Colorado. They're changing that down there.
Yeah, I don't know the guy, just.
Well, there ain't very many dairy farmers, period.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, Sammy, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
All right.
John, thanks.
All right, sounds good. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Samantha Peterson. I'm a sixth generation resident of Benton County. My parents, Dave and Karen Peterson, are in the room today. They're the fifth generation on our family farm. They raised my sister Jess and I there, and both Jess and I have made the choice to make our lives here in Benton County as well. Jess and I live just 1 mile north of our family farm, which is just north of Atkins. So today, I, along with my family, would like to voice some concerns around a potential utility-scale solar energy project in our area that kind of goes right around our family farm, and also discuss the Ag Land Protection Ordinance that our county has, and ask you as supervisors to uphold that when the pressure might grow for this large-scale, utility-scale solar energy project. So I did put some slides together just to kind of organize my thoughts and lead the conversation. In no way am I assuming I know more about the ordinance or the process of putting parameters around these projects, or really the communication that's been happening or hasn't happened between Invenergy, the company, and you guys. I'm not assuming I know more about that than you, but I will just stand here to share what I've learned from concerns about members of the community, of our community, their concerns, and talking with other people across the state, concerns that they've had, a couple of supervisors, a couple of lawyers, etc. So I just want to thank you for your attention and listening to our concerns today. So first, I'd like to just talk about the Ag Land Protection Ordinance and why we feel that it's important to uphold that as the pressure grows for this large solar project. I will share what we know about the project. We were approached as landowners by Invenergy, so what I share with you about the project is just what I've learned from a representative of Invenergy. Talk about the concerns that we have and many of the members of our community have about how this utility scale project could affect our community. I do want to talk about proper placement of solar energy. We aren't necessarily against solar energy or wind energy or alternative sources. We are just, we think it's important to make sure that those large scale projects are properly placed. And then I would like to just entertain a discussion around the potential for new parameters for these large projects. I feel that the pressure is going to continue to grow around these large projects, and I think just looking forward, it's important to look at this issue from all angles because it is a big deal and it's a lot of land and it affects a lot of people. So first, the Agricultural Land Preservation Ordinance was brought to my attention in November of 2018, I believe, when we were first approached by Invenergy. It is my understanding that, and it was talked a little bit today too, that this ordinance protects land above 70 CSR. There is a land use plan, I believe, in conjunction with this ordinance that states that 70 CSR, if I'm understanding correctly. So this ordinance right now protects land over 70 or above CSR from being rezoned, I think the word is, into a commercial or industrial use, which would be needed for these utility scale solar projects. Haley was kind enough to send me the ordinance, and as I was studying it and learning more about it, I just picked out a few things, few points when it was written, the purpose and the objectives of why the ordinance was put in place. Again, I'm not assuming that I know more about this than you all, but this did seem to resonate with our purpose today. So it states in Article 1, Section 2, that the ordinance is put in place to preserve the availability of ag land, to protect the health and general welfare of the people, to prevent overcrowding of land, to provide local citizens and local government the means by which ag land may be protected from non-ag development pressures, like large solar facilities, to preserve property rights, and then it also states, I think this is important, so that the land inside these areas shall be conserved for the production of food, fiber, and livestock, thus assuring the preservation of agriculture as the major factor in the economy of Benton County. I think that's important. We have a beautiful county. We've been blessed with productive land. We feed the world here. I think that's something that we should all be proud of and uphold in our county. So we're asking you, the supervisors, to uphold this ordinance as the pressure grows for these large-scale projects. Okay, so this is what we know about the project as we were approached as landowners by Invenergy. So the company is Invenergy. It's called the Cyclone Solar Project. Their goal is 200 megawatts of energy, and it's spread across approximately 2,000 acres of land. Most of it very valuable, productive ag land in our county, specifically on the eastern edge, which I'll show you in a minute. The leases are 25 years, and there's an option to extend for another 25 years. So from the research that I've done, solar panels will only last approximately 20, 25 years. So after the first lease has concluded, then all of that metal and the solar panels would have to be taken out, and new ones would have to be taken in, or put in. This is a map that I made, so I just want to say that this did not come from Invenergy, but I took this description from a written communication via email from a representative of Invenergy. They described the land that was being targeted as west of Covington Road and Highway 100, no further north of Halo, north of Highway 30, and not much further than Atkins. So I just took a screenshot on Google Maps. You can see Atkins right there. Our farm is the blue circle, and my sister and I live where that white dot is. So we're right in the middle of the land that's being targeted, and right now they're looking for 2,000 acres, but my worry is, and I think many other citizens of our county, is that if something like this gets approved, where does it stop, and how much land, how much land does this grow to? But 2,000 acres, in my opinion, is a big deal. Last I spoke with an Invenergy representative, they were looking to expand south of Highway 30, but that was a verbal communication. Okay, so I'm just going to talk through some of our main concerns about a project like this. These are concerns that we as a family have and the members of our community as well. The first one is just the lack of the decommissioning plan. I mentioned before we were approached as landowners, so I do have a copy of the contract. And the lack of commitment as far as decommissioning goes is a real concern for us. We were approached in November of 2018. I've been asking for a recycling plan for over, since then, and they have not provided me with anything. They're just verbally telling me that they will take care of it. But the written language in the contract just doesn't give me much confidence in that. And also right now, in all the research that I've done, it just doesn't seem like there's a real viable way to recycle these. There are parts of them that are recyclable, but many of the components aren't. So there's just not a huge demand for that or desire, for the effort in that. So I'm not going to talk specifically too much in depth about the contract, but I did want to point out a couple things that made us as landowners just like a red flag, I guess. So the first one, section 13.1 of the contract speaks to the grantee's right to terminate. So it states in the contract, grantees shall have the right to terminate this agreement as to all or any part of the property at any time and without cause effective upon written notice. So kind of says that they can get out any time. It just seems a little one-sided. The landowner can get out of the contract until they start construction. So if the landowner had, signed the contract right now and there hadn't been construction started, is my understanding that they could still get out. But it sounds like the grantee could terminate at any time. Again, that's just my interpretation of the contract. And then it speaks to the effect of termination, decommissioning. This just seems a little vague to me. It says, all property disturbed by the grantee shall be restored to a condition reasonably similar to its original condition as it existed upon effective date. So my concern is who gets to decide what is reasonably similar to what the land value was, CSR, who's responsible for that measure. Then it states, the owner shall have the right to restore the property and remove or cause removal of any property owned by the grantee to the extent required by the grantee under this section, and the right to receive reimbursement less the salvage value of the solar facilities if the grantee hasn't taken the solar panels off of the landowner's property after 12 months of the contract termination. So it just seems like there's not a huge commitment for the grantee Invenergy taking care of this. They kind of state if Invenergy hasn't taken, measures to decommission these solar farms or solar facilities, then the farmer or the landowner could do that. So the commitment for decommissioning just seems a little weak to us. These pictures are just, this is on 35. I know we're speaking specifically to solar today, but right now with the research that I've done, it's just, there's not a huge demand or a huge desire to recycle these things. So there is a problem with the wind towers right now. And then this picture, it isn't anywhere around us, but it just really, it reminded me about the derecho in August of 2020. We were hit by a tornado in 2004 at our farm, and it was very destructive. We swore we'd never get hit by a storm again. And we were, very much affected by the derecho in August of 2020. So it happens. It happens more often than we'd like. And my question would be is who would be responsible for damage like that? Who's going to clean it up? What happens to the contract and payments and things like that when and if a project is destroyed. So again, this isn't in Iowa or anything. It just kind of brought up a very recent issue that we had with the storm last year and brought up some questions in our mind. The next concern we have is pollutants and human health concern. As I talk to different counties that have wind and solar projects, there have been some extensive studies on how wind turbines and solar can pollute, and sometimes there is some concern around human health. So there's been studies around noise concerns, EMF radiation, nitrogen trichloride emissions, the materials used. There's lots of studies that can prove that those are harmful too. So it's just another thing that, if something like this was approved, that we need to do some research on and, make sure that we're not putting our residents in any danger from that point of view. We have concerns, being that we're right in the middle of the proposed project, about ruining the rural character of our land. I mentioned before, we have a beautiful county. That's why we live here. That's why my sister and I have chosen to make our lives here. And 2,000 plus acres would really start to change just the rural character of our land. Sometimes the pictures that Invenergy will put out there are beautiful, beautiful big fields, but I mean, this is the reality of what it would look like. They're going to be surrounded by fences and barbed wire, which I'll talk about in a minute, will pose some, effect on wildlife. There's not going to be an animal that can get in and inhabit that area anymore. So this would be the reality of what we'd be looking at our backyard. That kind of ties in with the property value decline. So I would be very concerned if I had a home that I couldn't control, if there were solar panels right up to my property line. That would do some damage to property values, I think. In my research, property values could decrease between, and this came from a bunch of different studies, between 9 to 40%, just depending on how close those solar panels or wind turbines were to a property. So that's a big deal when you're a citizen of our community that, you know, if we don't put parameters around that, that would affect many of us. Water runoff, this has been something that we've talked about since the very beginning. You know, these thousands of acres are just going to be covered with these panels, and I think water runoff needs to be a concern. That rain's just going to hit it, and we don't know. I mean, it could really change how water moves in our county. We have a creek that goes through our farm. I don't know if we had, you know, our whole tons of solar panels out there, how that would affect us on our farm. But you know, bigger than that, there are many others that would be affected by this as well. So I think it's something, it's important, and if something like this were to be approved, it needs to be looked at and considered for sure. The environment and wildlife welfare. I think I mentioned, you know, those fences being around it. There's not an animal that's going to be able to inhabit that area anymore. I read a lot about heat islands and how that could affect bird migration and glare. And there's ecosystems that, you know, depend on our environment, and this would drastically change that. So I think there needs to be some thought around this as well. And this was something that came up just last week, I think, in talking to another supervisor in a county of Iowa that approved a wind energy project. The road damage that happened, there wasn't a real clear agreement on who was responsible for that, and there ended up to be a pretty sizable amount of road damage, and they're now in negotiations and trying to figure out how to get that fixed. So it's just something to look ahead, and something I would have never thought about until talking to another supervisor in another county in Iowa. So these are just a few of our main concerns. We believe that each one of them needs to be looked at very closely if something like this is considered. And we just really feel like a project of this magnitude should not be rushed into, because there are just so many moving parts to how this could affect our community, our environment, and our citizens. This is just, you know, I've been trying to research and find projects like this, like what's being proposed in our area. I just can't find any that are this close to residents, unless they're projects that specifically power homes, businesses, or farms. But the large ones, so these are just a few that I found. They're some of the largest in the country. They're mostly in California, one in Arizona, and one in Nevada. But number one, the Solar Star California, that's 579 megawatts. Number 4 is 290. Our project is 200. And most of these large ones are just out in areas that they're not residential. They're out in the middle of nowhere, and there's lots of sun, and it's just not affecting property owners and residents in these areas. So I couldn't find any fix. Okay, as I mentioned before, my family, we're not necessarily anti-solar, anti-wind, alternative sources of energy, but we do believe in proper placement. And what that means to us means unproductive land, not our productive farm ground that we have here in Benton County. Areas that do not disturb residents, not surrounding our residents, homes, and property. We believe it should not be on land that's zoned for agricultural use. It should be on commercial or industrial zone land, which my understanding is the Ag Land Ordinance protects ag land over 70 CSR. And we do believe that small projects that power farms, homes, and businesses are appropriate, just not these large ones that affect so many people. Taking up valuable land and selling the energy into the grid that doesn't directly affect or benefit us here in Benton County. So as we go forward, and as the pressure might grow for large-scale, utility-scale solar and/or wind projects, we would like to entertain a discussion about some parameters around those, just so we can ensure that we're protected from a public health standpoint, minimize the adverse impacts on our county's rural character, the impacts on property values. We talked about the environment, the ecosystems, minimize problems related to water runoff and drainage. I'm really concerned about polluting our county with thousands of pounds of metal and materials, and protect our citizens from the expenses to fix roads and bridge damage as well. So as I've been talking to other counties that have went through the process of putting these parameters in place, these are the common pieces of the ordinance or of the rules. So there's some meaningful environmental tests that pertain to endangered species, water runoff and watershed, the bird migration, disruption, and effects of glare, and groundwater testing. So I think all of those things, if we were to put some parameters in place, need to be included. I think there needs to be some thought into setbacks from property lines to project lines to protect property values, protect the rural character of our land for our residents that have chosen to build their lives out in the country. I think there needs to be some discussion and agreement on who repairs the roads and bridges if there is damage to that. And most importantly, an appropriate decommissioning plan with terms and conditions. I think there needs to be a well-defined recycling plan put in place. Who's gonna pay for this? Taking all the solar facilities off the land? And who is responsible for making sure that the land is put back to reasonable, how it was before? Who gets to decide that, and who is going to make sure that that in fact does happen? So that's what I have for you today. We just wanted to voice our concerns. I don't know if Invenergy has approached the supervisors or anyone at all, where they are in their process. It seems like they've been working over the last couple of years to drum up some interest from landowners. But anyway, I wanted to share our concerns as residents of Benton County and just kind of start the conversation as the pressure might grow for these large projects. So that's what I have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Can I speak?
Sure can.
I'm Deb Yates. I am a resident of Lynn County. However, the majority of the land we own and farm is in Benton County. Sammy, if you can go back to that map that shows where everything's at. Invenergy contacted us over 2 years ago to contract with them. We found out last October our neighbors had contracted with them, and then their contract was sold out to Next Era, whoever's there now. They have already lost $50 an acre, that they're just out. At this point, I'm not sure, I didn't realize, is this 2,000 acres in Benton County alone? In addition to 3,500 acres they want in Lynn County. They had shown an area, well, you don't have it originally around just the nuclear plant. Now they have shown it, we live, this little jog here, is that right? My little jog where I live?
I made this, but I didn't.
There it is.
This is a new, I put the Lane County map on here too.
Okay, just go back to the other one, it's
Okay.
fine. Okay, where are we at? Yellow. This is our home here. We know this ground here, all this dark, and from that green strip there is contracted. It has been already sold out to Dwayne Arnold. They have proposed to go as far south as Highway 30, and we're staying clear over to Covington. So we have real concerns. Like I said, we farm in both counties, but I just think you need to be aware how much land they are looking to grab. And do what you can Lynn County's zoning has been updated, and I found it very interesting that they only will allow solar on agricultural and conservation ground. It used to be allowed on industrial. They have taken industrial out of their allowable spots. Yes, I think I even brought the documentation with me. So I just want, as a farmer in Benton County, please take a good look at what they are trying to push through your county and try and do what you can. Any questions for
That
me?
area that you described, is that next to Era or is it in Benergy? Or
It's
both?
all the same.
It's
No,
all-
actually, Inva Energy comes through first, and they explain this to us. They come through and try and get contracts with the purpose of then selling it off to Next Era.
Oh, okay.
So I was not aware there was an additional 2,000 acres requested in Benton County, in addition to the 3,500 they want in Lynn County.
So, yeah, it's already a huge area. But I think if they are able to get 2,000 acres and it's approved, I just don't know where it stops after that. That's our concern. We're asking today just to uphold the ag land use protection ordinance, which protects us from these large-scale projects altogether. That's what we're asking for today.
Another thing Lynn County has done, which is disturbing to me, is our ground will remain agricultural, but they will put a solar farm overlay on it.
Yeah.
So I have a 2-year-old home built so I could see out for a change, and I'm looking at 160 acres of solar panels if this goes through. My son lives just around the corner up the hill. He's looking at another 200 acres. We're very disturbed. We live between the transmission lines and that property. So it will help us if Benton County can help stop this here.
I'm just here to support the idea that you need to stand up for this ag area, which we've had some hearings on, and it stands. And as a landowner in Benton County, I think we need to stand for this ordinance. All of these things about trying to set distances and stuff mean nothing, because you should not allow it to even be started. That's the way I look at it. You shouldn't start making rules, because right now the ordinance says you can't do it unless you got low productive ground. And I don't think you can override the 70 CSR, so I'm just here to support the ordinance as it's written.
None of them energy company has, to my knowledge, come and approached any of us supervisors, right, guys?
That is something else we found out in Lynn County. They have not asked for a permit. And they have stated they will not ask for a permit until they have all the enough landowners leased. So it may be the same situation that we have.
Just a brief update. I have been contacted by NextEra. It started a couple of years ago. Barbara talked to them early on. NextEra has told me, based upon what our agricultural land preservation ordinance says, that they are not going to be submitting any applications in Benton County. That's what they've told me verbally. Invenergy called a few weeks back, month, maybe it's a month and a half, doesn't matter, but they called the office, and I spoke to a guy at length that particular day and told him what our position is in respect to our ordinance. And I told him that about the 70 CSR standard. I also told him that I was aware that Invenergy had signed 14 leases with property owners in this county. And the only response I got from him at the end of the conversation was, he said he would speak to his team and get back to me. And that's been the last communication I've had with anybody. NextEra told me that they were not going to be actively pursuing any projects in Benton County. Now, that was before I see what's happening in Lynn County, but just so everybody's on the same page and update, that's what our office has heard and been told. Of course, that's all verbal and that's it, but that's what I've been told.
I've read in the paper that some of the articles that's been recently printed here, sounds like I'm probably talking out of line, my own opinion on this, but I think what they're gonna try to do, if they wanna come in Benton County, they're gonna go to the board in Des Moines and try to get the ground that way. Overrule us, overrule our, and me personally, I will fight it.
You're talking about going to the Iowa Utilities Board and
Correct.
getting eminent domain. That's
Correct.
what you're talking about, right?
Correct. Correct, and I will fight it. I
Well, I
will,
think we should. I don't know who's gonna win in that, but I think we should do it all we got to stop it. Because that makes it worse yet, when they take it without, you have no choice.
'cause I know a lot of people in Atkins, Dave, we know each other for years back, and you have a lot of neighbors that are signed up for this. So I do catch heat from them, you know what I mean? And they know I'm against it, that's me personally.
Right now, the landowners that have been notified of this, they have requested, this would be Dwayne Arnold next area, have requested a waiver of public hearing. So they're starting out bad, if you ask me, trying to skirt the issues. They've also come out publicly on television and said that Dwayne Arnold next area will not ask for eminent domain. That's true, because they cannot. They have to petition the Iowa Utilities Board, and the Iowa Utilities Board will ask for use of eminent domain. So there's been a lot of things that are just really half-truths, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
I would like to see anyone that has signed up to go through the contract and have an attorney look at it. Because I think that there's a lot of stuff in the contract that's pretty foggy.
I have a copy of the contract we were offered with me.
But, I mean,
The people that I don't see written here, I'm sure down in this area is the same as up in my area. We have a farm that has been farmed by a big farmer, so the acreage is rented out. In fact, my farmhouse is rented out on my farm because I don't live there anymore. We've got people living in all of these houses on all of these sections around that have been rented out. These people should be notified because the owner that is around their land, that bought the land but didn't buy the acreage, is gonna lock them in. I mean, think of living out there on the 1 acre that you bought as an acreage, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by solar panels and they're never even talk to you.
That was another one of their half-truths that has been told. They have since, they started out showing an area just around the nuclear plant. Because honestly, when it came out and they said we're gonna put solar by the old nuclear, I'm like, okay, good idea. So there was a circle basically around the nuclear plant. Just this past weekend, they come out and showed that they are after the area from Center Point to Highway 30, that whole corridor, the west side of Cedar Rapids. So we have not been notified. But we've known since October that the land across from our farm has been leased. So here's a half-truth. This is the way they're dealing with things.
Okay. Well, good presentation, thank you. One thing, Sammy, I know when they first come around here, I believe it was in 2018, for the early people that they talked to, I won't mention people's names, but they did take a busload of people from Benton County to Illinois and Indiana. One of them states that they're doing that project is done. Fence is up, panels are up, and both these people, I know them personally, one of them I went to school with, he remarked to me about it was beautiful, it was a nice job and all that. Well, my comment was, you don't think they're gonna take you to a dump, do ya?
Yeah, and I think that, I can't remember the exact size of that one, but it was much smaller than this proposed area, I believe.
And
But I can't confirm the exact number.
There's a good chance it was new.
It was new.
It's not 20 years old, about ready to be trashed. It's a new facility, and if it's not good then, it ain't never gonna be.
How many acres does the power plant cover?
800.
Is that what it is? My husband and son just roughly calculated 650-ish.
And so like she said, when they wanted to put solar panels on Halo, I thought, well, fine. First of all, we can't do anything what Lynn County does anyhow. And so what's on that side of the property line, we aren't gonna even try to touch it, as far as I know. There's nothing to do with this. Right?
Right?
Too bad you live over there, but then that's the fact.
So there's, how many acres in the section?
640.
640 and 40.
And you know it's gonna, you know, the solar's gonna change, you know. It's just gonna change, and it's the way it can be constructed and used. You know, they're putting things in space that can now get energy from the sun, and they, you know, beam it down. I know.
Yeah, I think just the technology is in its infancy. I think it's gonna grow, you know, change and improve over 25 years, which is the first lease, and then there's another 20. I mean, there's just so much that can happen from now and then. Yes. And is it gonna be obsolete at some point in between now and 25 years? And it seems like with the contract, they can get out at any time.
I'll throw this last, go ahead.
As for waste, I read somewhere on this article that by 2050 there will be twice as much tonnage of solar waste as compared to plastic waste throughout entire history. So that's a major concern. Like, they don't have a recycling plant for these solar panels.
That's one thing I was gonna touch on. I'm on the landfill board too. And I pushed, and we got it done. It's in our bylaws. We charge $1 a pound to bury any solar or wind energy. So it's very expensive if they go to decommission them, you know what I mean? When we had the Draco, you know, we had quite a few panels ripped up. The solar panel company in southern Benton County, I will not name it, was very unhappy with me when he was hauling them down there. And I'm like, that's just the way it is.
And they talk about like the leaching of the heavy metals, like there's lead, that was just a few that McSister named off, but that's also a concern, leaching into the groundwater and showing groundwater testing and everything along those lines. So from a human health concern as well.
I guess the other concern that she mentioned is the water runoff. As you guys know, I'm in hoteler, I'm doing cover crops. The water soaks into my ground, it doesn't run off, not very much. Think what's gonna run off of this, with bare grounds between panels. There's gonna be, I'd like to see what the erosion's like under some of these fields. I'll be all right out in the desert where we get 2 inches a year, but not 40.
I watched this news clip from a solar farm in Essex County. I'm not sure what state that's in, but it showed how just the flooding and the watershed issues that they were having and mud issues and just a lot of issues in that sense. So that's definitely something to consider as well.
It doesn't just affect us in rural Benton County. I mean, I know there's concerns from people in town in Atkins even with drainage issues and stuff. I don't know how that all works, but I think it should be looked at if.
I've got a question. Are they talking, from the pictures you showed, it looks like they have these sites with rows of the panels. Would that be what they would be proposing in Benton County?
I don't
Like
know.
multiple rows as opposed to like.
You think so?
So what do they do between the rows? I mean, do they keep that mowed, or do they?
They say that they plant native prairie strips.
So they don't keep it mowed then?
I don't know.
We don't really know. We can't say with been, I don't know if we've had that conversation, but it's been
Yeah.
quite a while, because we told them that we weren't interested.
Yeah.
So I haven't, been in constant contact.
I believe that if you put that much solar panel with the space in between, it'd be like a thick forest, and there would not be an awful lot grow in the middle. And that's what concerns me, with nothing growing there, how we're gonna get any water to penetrate into the soil, and it just pours off. So it'll be worse to the fact that, when you get into a thick forest, very little grows. I mean, just hardly nothing grows, just due to the lack of light. And that's what I expect to happen here, is that they're soaking up most of the light.
The rows are pretty close
Very
together.
little growth.
Well,
From a farming standpoint, that would make sense.
we have, as supervisors, we have not heard or seen anything, but I would encourage you, if something does come up, let us know. I mean, because if they're gonna do an end around and go down to the State House and try and override what we have here in Benton County, we at least need to know about it.
I'm not sure how to keep tabs on that. Would you have any suggestion on how to?
Well, yeah, I'm not asking you to do that, but if you do hear something and we don't hear of it as a county, please let us know.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I guess my question is the agricultural land protection ordinance enough right now to keep a project like this from being passed in our county? Am I understanding the ordinance that is in place right now correctly?
The comment I've made to both companies that have contacted me is that I feel that it is.
Okay.
In respect to generation of power. Transmission's another issue, but the generation part of it is covered. And that would be a new non-agricultural use, and new non-agricultural uses cannot be approved if they're on land that is 70 or above. That doesn't mean that it couldn't happen on the 69 or below.
Also, you talked about transmission lines. Transmission lines, in order to put them in, they have to have a hearing. They tried to put them past our place, and they had to have a hearing with the people. They can put these solar panels in and they don't need a hearing. That's kind of the difference. I mean, where they do, like in Lynn County.
By hearing, do you mean Iowa Utilities Board?
Yeah, when they were going to move the lines that were south in the bike trail up on Highway 8 past our place, before they could do that, just move the transmission lines, they had to have a hearing so that all the neighbors could get together and talk about it, and whether we could accept it or fight it or whatever we wanted to do. And we have it now that they're gonna put it back on the bike trail that goes through Value and bury it in the city.
Okay.
And otherwise, they were gonna try to put it along Highway 8, which we didn't want the poles in our field.
Sure.
And there's also a cell tower there that they didn't think about, but they had to went around, so they weren't thinking very good. But what I'm saying is they had to have a public hearing. To put in these solar panels, there's no public hearing required. I don't believe, unless I'm wrong.
Well, local public hearing would be required if indeed one of those companies submit an application to this board for approval. There would be
Well,
a
yeah.
public hearing.
They would have to apply to you to change the land use ordinance over to commercial. I understand that, and to me, like I said, I agree with you. It is enough as long as we follow what it says. It says you can't do it. That's it. It's either you can or you can't, and I'm not sure of your low CSR ground. That I don't know the rules. Well, can you tell me whether that would be allowed?
Well, all 14 leases that we saw that they struck were all on land above 70 CSR. So, and I told that to the fellow from Invenergy that called me, that
Are they,
he said he thought he maybe needed to do a little more homework in respect to what the CSRs actually are, but I don't know that he did, but that's.
When you sign a lease, do you sign an easement as well? Do they file it with the county? These leases, do they record? I imagine
They are
They
recorded.
are recorded, yes.
So is that an easement, or is it just a lease that's
It's a lease that we found. There's 14 of them. They're
So
recorded
they're
leases.
officially recorded?
Yes, they
They
are.
are
And
recorded.
when they say you can get away from them, is that something, maybe you can get out of the agreement, but you can't get out of that recorded lease, I would imagine? Or the easement for them to come in and do whatever they like with your land?
They've entered into a lease agreement with these landowners, and it is a recorded document.
Yeah. I imagine that the language would be very favorable to them, and they can,
It is.
under the terms that they draw up, they can do whatever they need to maintain it, fix it, repair it, whatever.
I'm still a little foggy on what happens to these old solar panels. Now, my daughter lives down in Texas, and we went by a place where they were just laying out, but they're so new that I don't understand or know what'll happen to the old solar panels. And I'm concerned that if in fact they decommission, that number one, they won't have the necessary writing in place to take all those solar panels down, and second, where they're gonna go after they're taken out.
All right.
I guess I would like to thank the supervisors for listening to us. I really appreciate it. I really do.
Thanks for coming up, Al. Thanks, Sammy.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
See, Karen, how are you? Good.
Hey, Ron, can you drop that open for a couple minutes? Aaron?
Take care, guys.
I'm glad you got that in down at landfill.
Sheriff's coming in. He's next.
Or if you want to knock Tony out, because she probably won't take that long.
Which one?
Tony.
Tony's?
Yeah,
Yours won't take too long?
I don't think so.
She's just saying who's they're appointing, I'm assuming.
Okay. Tony, go ahead since you're here.
Thank you very much,
Thank
you
you.
guys.
See you, Tim.
See you. Somebody's jacket?
We've officially hired the new VA director, Kara Martin. She will be starting the 24th of May, and I will be training her that week, so the 28th will be my official last day. We're starting her at the same wage as me. She will not be getting the raise in July. We started her with 2 weeks of vacation. So that was that part. I know the next thing was Kirk Beeson being appointed to the commission. It does need to be a gender balanced commission. As of now, we have 3 gentlemen on there. So, you know, you can either reappoint him, and then it would have to become a 5-person board, with the 2 new positions being a female, or don't reappoint him and then have a female placed on the board.
Go through the dates real quick for me. Kara Martin,
Yes, 24th.
she'll start on the, okay, and you're done on the 28th.
Yep. So she'll have that week of
You're
training.
gonna miss my birthday.
So you'll need to, in the past, when Tony came in, the board, when she was hired, made a, so we're looking at 2 separate things, not to interject. You guys would have to approve the hiring of, or the recommendation from the VA to hire Kara, so you're approving their recommendation. The second is Kirk Beeson.
Yes.
Yes.
Or that,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
Yes.
we'll
and he wanted to talk about that, so that's a total separate.
Well, technically, the commission hires the executive director. So when you're here in this position that you find yourselves in,
Just scratch paper.
you're performing an administrative function of the job of
Just scratch
supervisor.
More
You
scratch
only have
paper.
reason to deny the appointment if there was some illegality involved. So this person, and I can't remember the name, I didn't hear you say it out loud, but that person's been hired.
I'm just saying what we did in 2014, they approved the recommendation, so it was a formal motion by the board.
Okay. Rick, you were on that, you wanna make a call?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask a question. I thought the starting salary was under what you're currently at.
I think we did 45, which is what mine is.
You're at 45? I thought you were at 46 something.
Am I, yeah.
So
I
it's
think
not
we said
quite the
45.
same,
Yeah,
yeah, okay. Yeah, it's,
A hair under.
so, well, I'd make a motion that we approve the hiring of Karen Martin.
Second.
All right, all in favor of hiring?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that one's done.
As far as the gender balance, how do you feel 3 versus 5?
If you look at other counties, usually the smaller, more rural counties stick
Run.
with 3. And your more populated counties are with the 5, but I mean, yeah, code says we can have up to 5.
Then the question comes in if, is a quorum 3?
2.
And currently 2,
Mhm.
but if you have 5, it's 3.
Mhm.
And do they have to be gender balanced with a quorum?
No, it's just on
I
the
didn't
board.
think so. Yeah, okay, I didn't think so.
If you went to 5-2, you'd have to pay them
Yep.
the
Correct.
mileage. I mean, so that's something that you don't have in the budget.
And
Yeah,
possible if they go to the commission meeting in Des Moines hotel stay that much.
well, for what I know, only have been on that is for hiring, the interview process. I mean, the 3 seems to work. I understand the gender balancing thing. Didn't even give it a thought when I recommended Dale Henry, obviously the first of the year. At this point in time, I think Kurt is a very valuable member to the commission. Yet I question whether or not we should go up to 5.
Would you have a list available for us of veteran females?
Wouldn't we have to post it?
No, well, yeah,
It doesn't hurt to post. Also, under the specific code section, it says before you folks make an appointment to the commission, you are to consult with your director and the other members of the commission. That's, I'm not making that up, that's in the code.
okay, I have not, so.
Well,
I haven't either.
that could probably be tabled.
Okay.
You can survive with 2, which is a quorum for the time being, and I would say that, let's see if we can get a female applicant.
So are
That's
you
what I'd
going to
recommend.
reappoint Kirk and then get 2 additional female?
I would say, not at this point in time, not to appoint Kurt. Okay, my real concern is, if we go to 5, and we have to have 2 females, are we going to get 2?
Well, see, that's why I'm asking
Yeah,
that. If
and
she has-
so if we can get by with the 2 that we have currently, let's throw it out there and let's see, because I'm sure Kirk would be willing to go on again,
Oh, yes.
obviously. And if we have 2 and we really feel that we need to make it a 5-person, that's great. Costs are gonna go up though, because they get paid for every mile that they travel to get here.
When is Mr. Beeson's term done?
June or July?
I think it's in June. I'm not 100%.
Okay. So we get a little
That would
time,
make sense.
yeah.
It might be worthwhile to consider inviting the commission out to have a meeting with the supervisors to, see what they think about it.
Well, in the meantime, we could get the word on the street for female.
You're also post for it too.
Yes. Okay, I'd recommend getting it posted.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many female military veterans are there? Is there plenty to choose from, or is?
There are, I mean, the problem with any of these is, as of now, we do our meetings during the day. We could easily change it if everyone's agreeable to in the evening, you know, if people are working, that kind of thing. So, I mean, there are plenty of female veterans. That part's not a problem.
But Mary Summy was on the board. She was not a veteran.
Yes, she
Was she?
is.
Was she?
Yes.
Okay.
They have to be a veteran.
All right. I apologize. I didn't think she was.
Mhm.
Okay. Didn't know the family as well as I thought. Huh. Okay.
Okay, Tony,
All right.
you got some directions there.
Yep,
Thank
thank you
you.
much.
Sheriff,
We've been talking about Atkins wishing to add an additional 22 hours to their contract. I gave you some figures there. Just over $27 an hour is the average wage. However, because our contract is in steps, the more appropriate wage to use is going to be the $28.67. That, to cover that wage, that comes up to $630.74 a week, or $32,798.48 for the extra 22 hours over 52 weeks in the year. Insurance comes up to about $9.10 an hour is what the county puts into the health insurance plan. That comes up to $10,410. And then the other biggest cost is the IPERS, and that comes up to $2,974, which brings that 22 hours up to $46,182, or $40.37 an hour.
4037, right?
Yep, we could add some other things in there. You could put the FICA and the Medicare. I did not go back and it wouldn't take much to do it. Vehicle cost, vehicle and equipment, getting everything put in, kind of rounds out to about $57,000 for a new vehicle. Divide that by 25. That comes up to $475 a month for vehicle and equipment.
475 per month per vehicle.
That's over a 5-year.
Okay.
Replacement, basically. And that would basically take half of it.
So are you figuring on getting a vehicle specifically for this?
We would have it half of the time, basically.
So you don't have a vehicle now?
No. Our vehicles are, we need vehicles.
So this 475 is one half, or is it the
That
full
would be-
amount?
No, that would be half of the cost
Okay.
of replacement. Say
Sure.
they're getting,
Okay.
you know,
Yep.
the
Yep.
additional
That's per month.
per month.
Okay.
And then that wouldn't be any maintenance on top of it.
No fuel, no maintenance.
Also, you don't have any way really to calculate overtime.
Nope.
The deputy spends
There
4
is no-
hours in Atkins, because of that, he or she is now overtime.
There is no overtime figured in this, and that is just vehicle and equipment cost.
And what was Atkins willing to pay per hour?
Well, they're open. We had shot them, our current contract through the entire county is at $25 an hour. They're willing to pay above and beyond that to get them up to 40 hours a week.
Looks to me like we're looking at $45 an hour by the time we get any gas or any other maintenance on the vehicle. I mean, by the time you change oil in it.
And that'll cover our costs.
I suspect if you factor in other things, that it's gonna be closer to $57 an hour.
Probably.
By the time you factor in vacation benefits and other issues and overtime and, uniforms.
Well, there shouldn't be any overtime, correct?
The deputy sheriff,
There always ends up being overtime.
they're not gonna charge overtime because it's not in contract with Atkins, but deputy sheriffs do have overtime.
Right, but as far as Atkins is concerned, they should not generate overtime if in fact they stay with their contract.
Correct.
They won't have overtime, but the deputy sheriff will have overtime.
I understand.
At different time periods because of the amount of time in Atkins and then they get called to something else.
Honest to God, I am not in favor of this, because this is gonna just eat us alive. This is going to be, what's gonna prevent us from putting a full-time person in Shellsburg, Urbana. Belle Plaine is having issues. Okay, and so where do we stop? My whole thought is don't start. Don't go down that road.
I think there's a way to get out of it, and that is overcharge, so that they want to have somebody in place.
Well, you get out of it by saying no.
That's the easiest way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but, all right, so then they don't have any law enforcement.
No. They have, just like you have, as supervisors, you are responsible for providing police protection to the unincorporated areas of Benton County. And you do that with a fully staffed and equipped sheriff's department that you fund every year. They have the exact same responsibility you folks have, the exact same, just within that corporate limits of Atkins. So, and they obviously realize they need to do it. And they also realize that by saying they want 40 hours a week, that they have a need for full-time law enforcement.
What do they pay them? What's the total dollars for the 18 hours per year? You got that figured? $22 something, ain't it?
Seems that's right, it's 936 hours that they currently pay for.
What do you do on the contract, Ron, if you have a situation where
23.4.
it's, let's say the county does 40 hours a week, and then you have some month where you average 50 hours, because there was some, a couple big deals going on.
We're never under in the community.
But what do you do
We're
with-
always over, and they just get it for free.
So, that's another thing you got going too. I'm not saying that subsidies are wrong, but it's a subsidy, and the entire county tax base subsidizes this type of law enforcement.
I understand. What bothers me more than anything is most of our law enforcement is on the east side of the county. You go up to, like by Dysart, north of Dysart, I'm sorry, but there isn't a lot up there. So those folks are contributing to Atkins and Shellsburg, Blairstown. Not that they wouldn't, but they're contributing.
Ron, have they given any more thought to, other than maybe they don't want to do it, to just form in their own department?
They
They
have-
really are that big.
They are. They have talked about it. I don't think in their minds yet they are quite there, but I believe they're, my personal opinion is that that would be their best move.
You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't this contract deputy work set up to take care of the small communities? I'm gonna pick on Mount Auburn, Garrison, you know, those smaller type communities that just needed that occasional officer?
Since I have been here, I started working for the county in 1986. They have carried the contract with all the communities.
Not all.
Well,
Do they carry what?
we don't carry Benton and Belle Plaine.
Right.
Shullsburg did their own. We now have that. We do have a small allotment with Urbana.
Yeah, I just don't think the county can afford to have a countywide police department, you know.
No, it would be super expensive.
Oh, you know, and so I'm opposed to the additional 22 hours.
We had, just real quick, historically, this is at least 15 to 18 years ago, Belle Plaine came forward and wanted to do away with their police department, with kind of taking it on. If you ever got into thinking like that, you'd have to have a substation of the sheriff's department in a town that size. You'd have to maintain a separate, you know, post.
Oh, absolutely.
And so there's some things where you just get big enough that, you know, it's a sign of the times, you've got to step up and provide your own department.
Well, with Belle Plaine clear down in the southwest part of the county, let's say there's nobody on duty or anything, and you got a call, and you got to come from Benton, you're looking at 40 minutes, right?
It's always the luck of the draw when something like that happens.
You also have that if you're sitting in your living room in Atkins and someone just threw something through your window. You might have this, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, you might have a deputy, deputy 30 miles away from you, which is another benefit to having local police protection. You've got someone, in most situations much closer, can respond faster.
I am good with whatever the board wishes to do. I see an advantage because we would have somebody, basically half of their hours would be for county patrol. If you look at it as just another additional person, but that is at an additional cost, of course.
You're covering the 18 hours now.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if we hire somebody to cover their 40, I mean, that takes care of a full-time person, basically. They work 40 hours a week. And so we wouldn't actually have that person covering, would we?
We're
Other than that 18 hours. I get what you're talking
we would
about
have
with that.
that 18 hours
Yeah.
that if we hired another person, we would guarantee that 22 hours
Yeah,
would be
it gets muddy.
toward, it does, it does.
Yeah.
It does, and it's a very expensive thing to fund.
Small communities have a tough time hanging on to trained personnel, not just police department,
No,
but it
everybody.
could be their wastewater treatment, etc., because they can't compete with the higher wages elsewhere. And so, unfortunately, we can't change history unless we just really step up and pay through the nose. those departments are always gonna have a turnover. And I don't know that we can afford to bail them out. You know, they have to step up to the plate a little stronger. They have to get it in their budgets.
It's really not our responsibility.
Exactly.
We are gonna move forward with our Civil Service Commission, and that's piece two. The hiring pool is definitely down.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We're gonna take applications and we'll develop a list that's good for the year. Doesn't mean we have to hire anybody, we'll develop the list.
Well, I think we've discussed this, now we're on to approve or not,
Can I say one other thing?
of course.
I think it would be, you know, you guys are making whatever decision you're gonna make. I think it'd be a little bit easier to make a decision to work with them if they actually step forward with a plan saying, can you help us out for a year? We're gonna set this up and we're gonna hire and form a department a year from now, type of thing.
We had set this original plan up for 3 years and say, we'll entertain this for 3 years, but after that. But I'm okay with going back and saying,
So where are we at in 3 years?
Exactly. If they don't have their ducks in a row. Yeah.
And city councils do change.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, I think, I agree. If we can reiterate that they have to have a plan, and if we can help them out for a year or two, that's fine, but they have to have a plan. I really believe that they're gonna have to have an officer in the future. I don't know how else to say it.
I think what I will do is I will go back to the city of Athens and say, we do not have an issue carrying forth with our current contract with you. As far as expanding it, that's just not something that we can feasibly do right now. But let's talk about the future and put that together and we'll see if we can help you in that direction.
Yeah, I think if they've got a plan and we can kind of deal with that plan and they can deal with the plan, then at least we've got something to focus on and move forward with.
Because they're in the position where they are going every day, basically.
Yeah, there's new houses going up over there like there's no tomorrow.
I will take this back to them, and I think that's a good resolution.
Okay. So we're not taking any action. Okay, very good.
I don't think it should take them 3 years to form a department, especially if they jump into the grant program.
It shouldn't, but you never know. No, thank you.
Side note, how are you doing? You had major surgery Friday.
You know, I'm doing okay.
And you're waiving his HIPAA rights in a public meeting, I like it.
And I'm okay with that.
It's a matter of concern. So, well, thank you.
Good to see you.
On a side note, they really did a good job of hiding the cranial scar.
Oh, yeah. I'll show it to you.
If you would like somebody to go with you, Ron, to the council meeting, call me, I'll show up.
They're
I can sit
pretty
there.
easy group to talk to.
Yeah, I can sit behind you.
They're pretty easy group to talk with.
Okay. All right, moving forward. Engineer, Myron.
USA Communications, I believe, has succeeded in keeping a map, I guess, would include sections 25, 26, 27, 34, 35, and 36, kind of the area southeast of Beltline.
Aerial or burying it?
Burying it. That's what they've done with the other.
Need a motion on that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, make a motion that we approve that utility permit for USA Communications.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
11 today, right? Okay, part-time seasonal help.
Last summer, Hannah Timmerman worked for Secondary Roads, helped us in mowing some of the maintainer sheds and some other stuff. She would be available some of the weeks, some of the days during the summer. I'd like to rehire her for this summer to do that. I believe last year we were paying her $13 an hour, and I forgot to look that up. I was gonna suggest $13.40.
Motion.
Okay,
And seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unless Haley tells me differently, I meant to do that before I came here, and had a surveyor wanted to look at some information, and I was with him for immediately beforehand, and thought I was gonna be late, but
Obviously not.
obviously not.
I have a question.
She was at 13 even an
Okay.
hour.
I was right.
Cemetery deal down Barstown, on the Barstown Road, have you
Yeah.
heard anything?
I have the report.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it's a large file of the way he sent it, but there are graves in that area. The area that was looked at, the archaeologist was wondering whether perhaps it could have extended farther south and farther west than what he did the ground penetrating radar on. But based on what he found, he was confirming that there are graves in that area.
So are they gonna be in the right of way?
Based on what he's showing and having to do a little bit of math because he was working on the metric system when he laid things out, to go to the full width that we were proposing on there, yes, I think you would be encroaching. I think if you took a little bit, you could stay shy of what appears to be where the graves start on the easternmost part of that. But I'd want to minimize that just so you weren't getting anywhere close.
Myron, when the outfit did this, did they cover all the areas that would be part of what you would want for the right of way? I know that they thought that there was a good possibility the cemetery is bigger than what even the cemetery commission felt. But as far as where you would need to do work, you know exactly what's there and what's not. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
That's the other issue. The folks that did this from the U of I felt that there was a decent chance the cemetery is bigger than the little area that the cemetery commission felt that they should look at with radar. And so quite frankly, it's not an issue for Myron, but the commission should probably see if they could get them back out there to make sure that they've got the whole thing surveyed, so to speak.
He used what was laid out was what was it, 18 meters by 12 meters, and started basically from the right-of-way line and went west. Steve Meyer from Blairstown was out there, and with his wicking capabilities, he was determining where he thought the northern and southernmost areas were, as well as how far west. And with the results from the archaeologist, he was concerned that it might go farther south and it might go a little bit west, and that with those old cemeteries, when they laid things out, sometimes graves were dug. The fencing that has been described as maybe being around that cemetery at one time was put in afterwards, and that didn't always capture the perimeter of the cemetery. It was kind of an approximate.
Or if they took their own life, I mean, some of the cemeteries, the one I'm in charge of,
guy hung himself, they buried him underneath the tree past the cemetery, so.
Steve thought there was 2 rows of cemeteries. I think one row of 10, one row of 11, based on what the archaeologist was looking at. He felt there, I think there was at least 23 graves he felt he could count for, and some of them were oriented in different directions.
But still, by rights, you wouldn't, as long as you don't go any further to the west where you think these are where he did, even if there's more buried south of that area, so be it. I mean, it just, if the commission would want to know, yeah, there's more people buried on the other side, it's just the big question.
And his cost for that day was actually less than his estimate. You just approved 2 claims earlier
Yeah, I
this
see
morning,
that.
one for
Yep.
the U of I for the use of the equipment, and one for the archaeologist, the professor, for his time, which amounted to just over $500.
The sad thing was, it would have been nice while they had this outfit out there, if they just said, okay, do a little bit more of the area while they were already out there.
Correct.
Well, based on Steve Meyer's info, what was tested that day felt was the entire area. And it wasn't until after the report was generated that there was a thought that it could have been bigger. So-
Yep, and no offense to Steve Meyer, who has some pretty good skills when it comes to the dowsing rods. You have dowsing rods, and some people, buy into those 100%. And then you have science in the form of ground penetrating radar, which, is clearly established and universally accepted. And I'm just saying, it would have been nice while they were out there to say, let's just go a little bit around the area where we think, the graves are, to see if there's anything else.
So, right now, it's being farmed. This ground is being farmed. In the future, is it gonna be blocked off as a cemetery, or is it gonna remain farm ground? Or how's that all gonna?
It would be up to your Pioneer Cemetery Commission to determine what they want to do. What they've done in other areas, I'm not saying they would necessarily do it in this one, is sometimes they'll put up a little bit of a fence. But, not a fence for, originally, I'm betting they probably had a deed that was granted way back when, that probably gave at least a half of an acre or an acre even. Well, 22 graves, 23 graves, whatever it is, that doesn't take up anywhere near an acre. So what they've done in a couple similar situations is they've just fenced off where the cemetery is, and then, sure, the landowner may have to, deal with that while it's out in the field. But, they're not taking a whole acre. Myron is the area that they surveyed, would be contained in this room, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's less than that. So, I get it, might be nice to be able to go straight across with a piece of equipment. Sometimes you gotta go around that.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Myron.
I guess the next thing is my decision was about the maps. How long are we gonna do them? What's everybody's opinion? Got any recommendation from the county, what was it, her name's Katie?
Yeah.
Have you gotten a recommendation
No,
from her?
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. Last time I knew, there was like 16,000 residents been vaccinated in Benton County.
So that'd be well over half.
Does that look like fully vaccinated or at least one shot?
Fully.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
there's
very
been
good.
some of us that have had it, don't need vaccinated.
That
But you
changes,
should get it anyway.
that changes every,
That's
I told my
the,
husband he had to wait 90 days after he had it.
yeah.
I gotta say, that changes.
See, they did one of my people that had it, and they didn't make a wait, they made it out.
Well, it's good that we've had that many county residents, fully vaccinated. But as far as at least the courthouse or services, not everybody comes from Benton County.
I understand, and I mean, I was in Cedar Rapids yesterday, and I've been to, all them are all still hard-nosed yet. There's
Yes,
none of
they are.
them given, and just, but yet, I'm not gonna name names, but there's businesses here in Benton that have even taken their, I call them the spit shields. They're gone. And the employees don't have masks no more or anything, and that's in Benton here.
I was in Tama County on Thursday, and this was at their secondary roads where we had our meeting for, the insurance meeting and Heartland Risk Pool. And big bold note, masks are required to enter this building. That's Tama County. So as of Thursday, they hadn't relaxed that. Yeah.
You're still having for court, the judges, the court system's requiring it, if for anyone in court and, dealing with the judges, court attendant, whatever.
Yeah, it's, I think we're all as done with it as we can be, but
Well, now we're going through masks like nothing right now, because people assume we're open, they don't have to wear a mask, and then we're having to give them out.
yeah, and that's,
And they argue at the door sometimes,
Yeah.
not bad.
Yeah. We've gone through a lot,
yeah,
just in the
well,
last couple
you
of
can
weeks.
go out to Dollar Fresh or Hy-Vee or whatever it is, and they've got a basket full. You walk in, you don't have a mask, take one. You know, so I mean, they go through a lot of them as well.
I'm not so sure that we're not behind the times. In other words, whenever this all first started, the masks really, I'm not gonna say they weren't required, but people didn't have them on. And now we've got this vaccination program going, everything is probably better than it was, but we're behind the times on wearing masks. In other words, we're wearing masks and we probably really don't absolutely need them most of the time. Where we needed them early on and we weren't wearing them. But I might be wrong on that too, I don't know.
I just feel like when's it gonna end? I'm just,
Well, that's very true.
and I look at the statistics, and I listen to the doctors on TV and all that, and now they're complaining nobody's getting the shots. We have the vaccine, it's here, but people ain't get. So what's that mean? We're gonna wear a mask for the next 100 years?
From what I've been able to interpret from television, is about a third of the population that was eligible had received their total vaccinations. But they have started to open that up now to the juvenile population. And so when you talk population, I mean, it's everything from an infant to, people with 1 foot in the grave. So those numbers are tough to deal with, really are.
What's really interesting to me is, well, I've had it now, so whatever. But you go to the hospital and they don't give you a shot, they don't ask you if you want a shot, nothing. And then you have to go figure out whether you're gonna get the shot, and nobody knows whether you need it or don't need it. Brian had to talk to a nurse down in Cedar Rapids, and she had to work at getting the answer. I mean,
You mean because you contracted COVID, the question was whether or not, and they didn't ask you if you wanted a shot, or, but it's been stated that, even with Haley's husband, you aren't to get a shot
I know.
for at least 90 days after you are had this
Yeah.
because of,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we found that out, but we didn't know, nobody told us. We had to go look for the answer.
Ask when you would be eligible for
Yes.
it. Mhm.
I do get you guys are saying you're feeling comfortable, but then here again, you guys haven't been wearing masks here either.
Everybody else had their mask on today. you know,
Dana
and
emailed and said she says votes to ditch the masks, so she asked me to say that.
that was Dana.
Mhm. And Barb, Brittany, she told the guys this morning, didn't she?
My office, the girls were all okay with it. They want to leave the shields up.
Mm-hmm.
And, or leave it, they want it to be left at if they want, up to them.
Yeah,
That's
that's the only thing I'm saying, make it your personal opinion. Dave, most of the time, 99%. I'm just trying to make it your job easier by wearing the mask.
But aren't we
I would like to see us just change the sign on the door, say
recommend?
masks encouraged, not
Not
required.
right, I recommend.
One of the problems you're gonna have is they still need it up on the third floor of the court.
Yep.
Well, then we can post that on So you're gonna still need to have a mask
Second
supply up
floor.
there. 'Cause you Second let folks floor. in and they don't wanna come to court, and then we won't have any masks.
Masks required for
I
court.
think we still have plenty of masks.
I think if you're
I don't
gonna,
think
I
we
think
do.
you should
Yeah,
make
I
it,
just wanted to-
you know, make sure your
Yes.
announcement says that if individual employees
The
want
election
to, or departments, you know, feel.
Yeah, the
they
election
need-
stuff, though, that.
You know, they can certainly
I've
still
got
do
several
that.
thousand of those ladies.
So are you going to then post on your office doors, mask required to enter
It would
this
depend on
office?
the office.
Pardon me?
It would depend on the office.
That's
Yeah,
what
you
I'm
have-
getting at.
You know, I imagine most at this point would probably say they're not needed, or they don't want, you know, they're not gonna require them. You know, I haven't surveyed my people to see, you know, if they feel comfortable with, you know, folks walking in off the street without one, but. I guess. It's gotta end at some point, but just keep in the back of your mind, you know, let's still positively encourage our employees and anyone else for that matter to get a shot, because they work. That's one of the reasons why we're seeing the trends go the opposite direction towards better numbers. But we still have people out there dying, getting sick and having to be hospitalized. In fact, we even know some of those people. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's important to get the shots out there, because we may be, you know, heaven forbid, we don't want to have to see this thing resurge in the fall and winter, and we're right back to where we were, with everyone with the masks and all the rules again.
So, I'm blind on this, but let's say you get your shot now, or you've had your shot, okay? You gotta get another shot next fall?
You might have to. They're still working on it. You know, this is our first pandemic in 100 years. None of us were around for the first one. They had all kinds of people die and die worldwide. Okay, they're still figuring out the science on this, but so far, seems like they're doing a pretty good job of figuring out the science.
I just would like to have the input from Katie.
Well,
Yes.
that's, you know, obviously that's the way you proceeded from day one,
Yeah.
and it was probably a pretty good way to proceed.
You know, we should have had the county nurse here.
Well, we can wait till next week, but I mean,
I'd recommend that.
okay.
So leave it as is until she's able to come and give her recommendation.
Are you still meeting weekly?
Scott was gone. I think we're gonna meet this next Monday.
Okay, so
Scott's gone?
He was gone.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's a meeting tonight.
Okay.
So that would be too late of a notice, so I'll send her.
That should work then.
Maybe we can put some solar panels on your roof.
I'd sure like to.
Depends if it's
Yeah,
70
so the
CSR.
SART thing is the next thing that you guys have to work on.
That's the problem.
Put
You
that
know,
on
the
the
sun
agenda
shines
next
on ground
Okay,
that's
well.
less than.
What's that?
Tracy's
on the
actually
agenda
looked
next
into
week.
Yeah,
that.
I'll talk to Katie before, so we
Certainly
don't.
Benton's got some rules against us.
I
putting
don't
on
really need to, but
some building.
It has to be on the building that it is servicing, basically.
What else we got?
You can't put it on your garage.
Beyond.
That's where I'd like to put.
Yeah.
That's where I said two.
They
They
go
said
to the utility
Benton
board.
has an ordinance here that,
I hate to put them up on that flat road.
I don't want them up there. No way.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Go on
The steel buildings out back.
well, the service in that building and the sheriff's department. That might be worthwhile. Nobody really
Thanks,
sees it.
Byron.
Well,
They face, the south, but the.
that's that southern exposure there.
Did we only cover it? I thought.
No,
No,
Thanks.
no. You have Dave, and you've also got item number 7.
Yep, that's what I come
You
back
have
for.
reports. So,
You guys ready for mine?
Yeah, we're gonna, let's see, the reappointment, we tabled that one.
we're gonna table that? Oh, yeah.
Which
Yeah,
one?
sure.
15,
Yep.
Oh, yep, I got an email on that.
okay. David,
All right, this should be relatively simple. Got one copy. And I have no copies.
No, here.
Dave, you've seen it before. All right, the one that I would want you to sign is that one. You guys have seen this before. This is for the SART, Victim Witness Coordinator. SART is the Sexual Assault Response Team. Without reinventing the wheel, group of counties are all chipping in. Continue to fund, is it Randy Lewin? Yes. Is that how she's, Lewin, is how that pronounces her last name? Lewin. This agreement would basically just cover from now until the end of this current fiscal year. They would like the county share to be $4,333.33. That's in paragraph 4B. I'm sorry, 4A. And then on Tracy's document that I'd ask to be signed, if you will approve it, we would then do a line through that payment by March 19th, because obviously March 19th was some time ago. We would put in a date that the auditor's office could issue the check on.
What was that amount again?
But we had already approved the funds.
$4,333.33.
So,
Yeah, and so, so basically without reinventing the wheel,
That's
you
evidently-
guys had all those law enforcement
Right.
officers and
Yeah,
Randy
they only
came
had
out
it
a couple months
Till
ago.
2000, what he took out, the
That's
24.
what this is.
Oh.
exactly, this is just putting it in
I
writing.
understand the date, March passed, but the year,
He cranked that out.
he
and I
crossed
did
the
it.
year, yeah, I did not do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I crossed the whole thing out and just.
The year too.
I did, just so you could have enough room to write the whole thing. and print it. So I don't know if that's something you can issue a check yet this week, or have one issued. But then if you're in agreement, I can't remember if you have to do this by resolution or by
Yes.
motion. since
Yes,
it's a
resolution,
2018.
if it's a 2080, and we have to include that in it.
And then Tracy signs it. The other signatures have already been signed in other versions of this, the other different county supervisor, chairpersons. We're the last one.
And then if you approve it, just approve a handwritten claim for the amount today too, then we can issue that.
And I'll make that motion that we approve the 28E agreement and do a handwritten claim to pay that amount that we had already authorized.
$33.33.
Correct.
Yeah, we'd already authorized that.
No. Well,
Yes.
we talked about it, but it wasn't a formal motion, because this will be by resolution, and then that could be in your claim.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
I thought we
Shake aye.
we got a second first.
Oh, second.
All right, now,
Aye. Primer.
Your shake aye.
Seaman, aye.
Can you email me that Word document so I can copy it
We had
again?
already
And if you'll
authorized that.
sign it,
I think we
I'll
talked
email
about it, but we didn't approve
to
it.
the group.
You want,
Just waiting on
what
it.
date do you want wrote in here, David?
Today's date, May 11th.
You love it.
No.
I've got more copies if you pardon.
Is it
Well, I'm
today?
talking the one you scribbled out. Each county shall make payment full to Clayton County by, that's where you had this scribbled out, March 19th of 2024.
Right.
I just put 5/11/21.
Perfect, and then
Okay.
also on the front page.
Right,
Same date.
okay.
May 11th. trust me, they're gonna cash that check and happily do so.
Got it.
And it is for a good cause.
Want this back?
You can keep the vouchers if you want. You can bring your office with them.
Okay,
The one with the signature, and I will email that to you, Haley.
Okay, thank
or
you.
you can put it in your.
Sure I can. Gary, you want me to take your extra copy, or?
Yep. If you want it, you can have it.
You want one for your records, your memoirs?
There you go.
I got that last night.
You don't want 5 or 6?
I do appreciate the offer.
Those masks do get tiresome, don't they? Yes.
Do you want me to explain number 7 a little bit to you?
Please.
Okay, so the American Rescue Plan Act is the new funding that the federal is gonna give out $350 billion, and it all goes to different entities. Benton County, we're estimated to get like 4.28 million. Half of it will come possibly this month, and then the next half will come next year. So I'm serving on a committee with ISAC and a few other auditors. And our suggestion to the other counties is we're gonna have a committee. Ultimately, you guys are the ones that are gonna make the decision on where that money is spent. And there's gonna be guidelines that they just come out with yesterday, I believe. Because I have a meeting at 1 today to figure out what we can spend that on. Scott Hansen and I talked about, the new radios that we need to purchase that we did not budget for, or get a general obligation bond, so I don't know if that's something, because that'd be a big chunk we could use that for.
Sure.
And it's tax relief, so my suggestion is if we wanna form a committee, that way we have a working group that can get together and brainstorm on where that money should be spent, etc. But right now, that's a big concern, is how we're gonna pay for that, because I think it was 7 million?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be a big chunk of that, and then maybe we could spread it out for future years on a general obligation, or just budget for it.
What I was reading last night though on that, you could actually, if he'd hire a new deputy, new employment
Yes.
would cover that
Yes, there's
too.
gonna be different things, but I'm just saying that would be one obvious
And
possible reason.
You'll find out at 1 o'clock today.
Yeah, hopefully, and then I have a Friday meeting again, because I'm on the
Sure.
committee, so.
Well, I mean, it's got a long list what you can, but one of them was new law enforcement employees.
Right now, I have to edit our DUNS number has to coincide with the SAM's number. There's things we have to do before that draft will be put into our banking institute, so. So I let Melinda know, because that'll be a big chunk coming in, and we have to let our banks know where to put all that,
Yeah.
so.
So, have you got a recommendation
I know.
for
So,
this committee?
yeah, I guess at this point, do you want the department heads, elected officials? What are your thoughts?
Could you say one more time, what was it looking like the money can be used for?
Well, tax relief for sure, and it's not necessarily COVID relief, obviously, but it's, public health emergency or just
And how
economic
much
impact.
Possibly would Benton County have?
I think it was 4.28 million, 4.28. We'll get half this year and half next year.
I can pull it up here in a second.
Yeah, and then we don't have to pass that down to the cities. Every government entity is allotted their own money. So the cities will be
So
getting money too.
that's our money.
They've already decided this? Yeah, free government money.
Yep, 350 billion being spanned out, so. They're estimating this month yet, we're gonna get that.
American Rescue Plan.
Yep,
The,
ARP for short.
The radios could basically.
That's come up with
towers,
other
et
counties
cetera,
too.
That equates to tax relief if we're not doing a bond issue.
Right,
So,
yep.
Speaking of those radios, I've been getting very positive comments back.
Our new paging system is working wonderfully. However, our rainstorm Saturday night, we had a lightning strike at the main tower, which came in, they believe, on the utility, and we got a lot of damage. down at the Van Horn site.
Didn't that one get hit before?
Yeah.
I think this is our second claim on that one.
Do anything for those like tower sites and, you know, is it for lightning protection or?
It's supposedly there, but apparently it doesn't.
So Haley, are you looking for all department heads?
Well, I would just wanted to brainstorm with you. That's just a suggestion that maybe we could start meeting when those
Sure.
directory, or, you know, when they give us more guidance on what we can use that for.
Okay.
I'll find out when it has to be spent, obviously, but
All right.
I just wanted you guys all to know about it. So if you're not ready to go that far, we can wait a little bit, but I just
Well, I'm just
thought,
wondering if after this afternoon, you might have a better recommendation.
hopefully,
You know,
yeah.
which department heads.
Yep.
I mean,
Well,
department
that's
head, I'm
what,
thinking.
you know, it's just a recommendation that
Sure.
there's 6 of us auditors along with, we're gonna recommend it to all 99 counties to kind of, we want to do it in uniform, how we're.
For the whole state?
Yep.
So you're representing
I'm representing the Auditors Association on this committee.
for the whole state,
Yes.
basically?
Yeah. But there's other people that serve. We have some supervisors on there. We have ISAC representatives, and then so many auditors.
Well, I'm just thinking that maybe not all department heads need to
Right,
be.
right.
Is kind of where I'm at, and
Or elected officials, right? Because you
Yeah.
guys ultimately get to say yes or no.
correct. Yeah.
Or if
So-
you just want to have updates and talk about it in our security meetings, maybe, I don't know.
Well, it would make sense to me to make a recommendation after,
We know more guidelines?
yeah, once we get
Okay.
the information.
Yeah, I just wanted you guys to know because that money could be coming in here any day, so.
Sweet. Checks in the mail.
Electronic deposit. We won't see the check.
Reports. Well, I had Heartland Risk Pool Thursday, as I've already indicated. And it looks like next week will be when Judy will be out here to visit with us. And so big deal is going to be with the cybersecurity. You know, we already know that.
After that
insurance-
recent hacking,
Oh.
that's gonna be where gas prices go up.
Man. Yeah, well, I mean, and this is just tip of the iceberg. And so getting coverage is,
Gonna be harder.
it's gonna be harder and more costly.
Mhm.
For as advanced as things are, and we'll just divide it down the middle and say there's the good guys on the computer side and there's the bad guys on the computer side. For every smart guy on the good side, there's a smart guy on the bad side.
Yeah,
Trying to
and-
figure out, and there appears to be no end to it.
This is the Heartland projected 21-22 renewal comparisons for Benton County, and I'll hand that around.
And that thing you already gave me for Ben.
Yes, and that's for Ben.
So
That
why
has
is
to
the
do with cyber.
equipment breakdown coverage at 17.42%?
Increase?
Workman's comp at 32.89%.
All has to deal with what you've had for claims.
Yeah, she'll go over that.
Yeah.
The mod factor would be, we did have a few workman's comp this year.
Oh, yeah, we're one of the higher ones.
So I'm sure, we were doing really well and now
Oh,
it's been back
yeah.
up, so.
And a lot of that goes down to the training,
Yeah, well, we haven't done that for
right?
a little bit.
They recommend, you know, we're gonna have to do the harassment prevention training. And that may be something the new HR person's going to.
Yep, so we told her.
So, yeah, so that's a good thing.
Off my hands.
So, yeah, just giving you a heads up that this stuff is coming around. So, okay.
Yeah, I
Gary,
think
you
pretty
got
s-
anything?
Judy is planning on it in person, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Have something tonight, probably.
What do you got tonight?
Oh, you have.
Same thing, EMA?
Tonight?
Yeah.
No, Republican meeting.
Oh, I ain't gonna make it.
I probably won't either.
I have soccer.
There you go. Had conservation last night. And get you guys kinda up to date. Wood chips was $95,584, what they got paid for our headache.
I thought we were supposed to get 200.
We cut the
Well,
leave.
if you'd had both of them,
Both places.
it was gonna be close to, what, 170 or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. We
And
were
this
getting
was
down
down
to
to
one.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one check that they got.
Which quite honestly, if they were talking 170, and that was supposed to be the smaller of the two, Benton was supposed to be the larger.
Correct.
So that came out to over half.
Yep, yep.
Problem is the road, we'll spend that on the
Well,
road.
yeah, I mean, that's, and we
Okay.
knew that when it happened.
They also, the Boomerang Company is gonna also kick in. I just wrote the total dollars down, but it's divided by thirds. They're gonna give $8,960 divided by going to the Whitetails, Turkey Federation, and Pheasants Forever of the chapters of Benton County. Okay. All right. Now, getting down to the Hart property, which you've seen that we okayed in our claims that we sent checks off
Yep,
to the Habitat.
for humanity, or,
Yep.
yeah.
That's
Heritage,
holding
or the
that.
Heritage
Yeah,
Foundation.
Heritage, excuse me.
Yes.
That's holding that. So it was kind of a pass-through. They sent the 95,000 and some change. 13,300 was rent for cash rent and farm out last year. And they also had 13,500 a REAP that they sent. They're still planning on getting 15,000 from the Iowa DNR, a grant, besides another grant for 43,000, which that's supposed to be coming here soon. Will leave a balance of $12,628 left to pay off.
And Shelby and I talked because it's too late to amend again for her spending for those additional, so it might have to carry over for that last payment to go out.
Okay.
'Cause
So-
her and I have been talking about it and
Okay.
looking at her fund
If
balance.
they're getting rent for land, I mean, couldn't they end up essentially paying for this 12.6 with their rent?
I would say yes, but see, the deal is, I don't wanna get into too much of this right now, is that, what was going on was not kosher. They were renting ground that they did not legally own.
Oh, well, then I can go ahead and rent your farm out? Okay, all right.
The conservation one? Conservation did, or the Heritage Foundation?
Conservation.
Oh.
Heritage owns it.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So then do
What
we
a
have to give
mess.
that back, or we don't?
Yes, that's part of that
Okay.
money that you
I
sent.
can't
Yeah.
believe it. What?
So, ground that they do own, they could technically put towards this amount.
Well, she was gonna get something else, I thought.
She's done, like I
Right,
said, there's
she's
two
done.
grants that are
Yeah.
gonna come in,
Yeah.
one for 15,000 yet, and one for 43. So she said there's more than enough money in the lost fund
Yeah, yep.
to cover that. And then last night, they also voted and passed, they're buying a brand new skid loader for Hammond Lake.
They're
Rather than carting back and forth.
Correct,
Makes sense.
brand new skid
She
loader.
talked about that during her budget time.
Yeah.
$100,000 for a skid loader?
No, 65,000 for the skid loader. Cause the company's gonna stay with their bids. She got bids in October of last year. And they're sticking to their bid, which I was surprised.
Yeah.
Because the way everything has gone up, and I mean, you know yourself, you go by Case IH, I mean, that looks like a ghost town down there, that lot.
there's nothing down there.
I noticed
Unless
that
you got
last
$1 million.
week.
You know, the implement store here in Benton, look at that. Have you ever seen it that empty since
Nope.
they,
Have you looked at car lots lately?
yeah?
Exactly. I mean, they've all got
But anyway,
supply
they're,
problems.
they're sticking to their bid, so,
That's good. Let's
so
go.
that's what I thought too. And I didn't think that wasn't real bad for a skid loader. It's a big one. Same size that they got out here.
So they gonna get a tree trimmer and everything?
The only thing they're gonna get, they're gonna get a regular bucket and then a grapple bucket with a bucket. And that's the only attachments. And then see, since it's identical to the one they got, they can just take the attachments that they got for this one up here, put it in the back of a pickup, haul it down there. They're gonna share attachments.
Sure. Makes
So,
sense.
Yeah, so it was smart getting the same kind, same everything.
Well, everything's the same anyway.
Yeah. So that was one of the things. Then they got a seasonal hired, and I met with him last Thursday. So I like the guy.
Good.
He's gonna do a lot of the work himself that they're not gonna hire. And he's even thinking about gonna maybe take on the Hannah Lake project of the building with the blueprints that Atkins made. But I said, my advice was, the way the materials are and everything, I believe you'd be smarter to wait till fall. Hopefully things will drop price-wise, because, you know, I know I just picked up two 16-foot 2x12s yesterday, and it was $140 for 2 boards.
Yep.
You can't go to Menards.
So I guess that was one thing, and then a quick deal, Rick, I don't know if you seen me Thursday,
I did.
Wednesday, whenever you guys met up here, I can't remember now. I got the doors in the rooms, the drywall. Friend of mine works at Menards, called me and says, hey, hurry up and get down here, we got 2 doors, come back from a job, there's nothing wrong with them. He says, we'll take a lot less. So I got them 2 doors, the casing that goes on the doors, 2 doorknobs, everything for $355.
Nice.
So I thought, I was really happy with that. And then the casing, the baseboard that we put down, if you looked, it's a different color, I understand it, but that was left over from Dana's project. Because I thought it was stupid to put baseboard down in like the storage rooms and the furnished rooms. Why would you put baseboard down in rooms like that? So, did not put it down there, but it was saved here, so I turned around and used it over here.
Mhm.
Had 16 inches left over when I got done with that room, so. Worked out good, so.
Cut it pretty close.
You, get the roof on the,
No, I met with the guy, I took all the materials up to him Thursday last week, Thursday or Friday, whenever it was. Thursday it was. Took everything up to him, you know. Now they're planning on May 19th. They're planning on a work session at the cabin, so. I said, well, it depends on the weather. I might come up and help.
Sure.
well, if you don't, how are they gonna get it?
This new guy that they got hired, like I said, I have faith in him.
Oh.
He's not,
He knows what's going on.
yes, I trust him. Good job. So that's it for me. You got anything you didn't? You're done?
I'm done.
I'll take a motion to,
Well, then I'll give it to you.
good.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.